replace that with a revised, it's not exactly a revised attachment A, but it's a much clearer attachment A. And that copy is available to members of the public, and then I have printed one out for each member on the dais.
Thank you so very much. And are there any others?
Madam Mayor, I have no further changes to tonight's agenda.
Thank you so very much.
And then just for the record, Councilmember Liana Rivera is now present.
Thank you. Tonight, we have a proclamation to Busy Bee Garden Co-op. Chelsea, I heard some claps. You can go ahead and clap real quick. And tonight, this proclamation will be presented to Chelsea Gastelum, who is the co-founder. And what I'd like to do is take this opportunity to thank you. And to thank you for all of your hard work to make a difference in our community, specifically to pollinate Lemon Grove. And your work is commendable. That's not here on the proclamation, I'm just speaking from the heart. But I will go ahead and read the proclamation into the record. And it says, whereas pollinator species such as birds and insects are essential in producing much of our food supply, and pollinator species provide significant environmental benefits that are necessary for maintaining healthy, biodiverse ecosystems. And the Busy Bee Garden Co-op establishes pollinator-friendly landscapes with the city of Lemon Grove, envisioning a day where all Lemon Grove residents view themselves as stewards of their local ecosystem. And the Busy Bee Garden Co-op has been uniting the community around the issue of pollinator survival in urban settings through the expansion of pollinator habitats. And the Busy Bee Garden Co-op has partnered and collaborated with like-minded organizations such as the Xerces Society, Society, Wild Ones, and their San Diego chapter, San Diego Bird Alliance, formerly San Diego Audubon Society, Monarch Fellowship, and Pollinator Pathways to benefit the citizens and pollinators of Lemon Grove. The contributions and dedication of the Busy Bee Garden Co-op has led to the city of Lemon Grove being host to the first and only Wild Ones certified native habitat in California. The contributions and dedication of the Busy Bee Garden Co-op have led to the city of Lemon Grove becoming the first community in California to be included on the official pollinator pathway. The Busy Bee Garden Co-op strives to make pollinator conservation equitable to all Lemon Grove residents by providing free outreach, education, native plants, and seeds. And so that's really the gist of the proclamation, and now therefore, I, Raquel Vasquez, Mayor for the City of Lemon Grove, do hereby honor the Busy Bee Garden Co-op for their tireless dedication to Lemon Grove's native species, their significant contribution to native bee and butterfly conservation, and for teaching the community to have respect for the creatures which keep Lemon Grove and the world thriving. Let's give them a round of applause. And I think we can clap louder than that, right? So let's give another round of applause. What I will do is I will turn the mic over to you to share your thoughts, and then afterwards, we will come down and take a photo with you. So I'll turn the mic over to you.
Bee Garden Co-op is honored to have this recognition this evening. I am here to accept this on behalf of all of the Busy Bee volunteers that come out to make a difference in our city. Thank you for acknowledging our efforts and for the support we've received. We know we are just one of many community volunteer groups making a difference in our city, so this recognition really means a lot to us. We look forward to continuing our efforts to make pollinator gardens an equitable endeavor for all Lemon Grove residents and expanding our pollinator pathway through all of Lemon Grove. Thank you.
And for all the Busy Bee volunteers, if you want to join the picture too, that'd be great. I see some of you out there.
You guys can all go up.
Come on up. Don't be shy.
Chelsea to be recognized.
And the front. We didn't want that one,
You're good.
I am not sure if you are aware, but it is National Fire Prevention Week. And we have a proclamation recognizing that it is Fire Prevention Week. And so I'd like to present this tonight. And if I could have our public safety fire folks come up to the podium. And what I will do is I will read the proclamation into the record. And when I'm done, I'll actually turn the mic over to you so that you can say a few words, and then we'll repeat the effort. Photos together, and I'll give you the proclamation. And so, whereas fire is a serious public safety concern, both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at the greatest risk from fire. According to the National Fire Protection Association, smoke alarms can make a life-saving difference in a home fire, but they also have to be working in order to deliver the needed protection. This year's Fire Protection Week campaign reinforces the critical importance of smoke alarms and that is what is needed to be installed, tested, and maintained properly. Lemon Grove's residents should act when alarms chirp or beep. Missing or non-functional power sources, including missing or disconnected batteries, dead batteries, and disconnected hardwire alarms or other AC power issues are the most common factors when smoke alarms fail to operate. And NFPA statistics show that having working smoke alarms in the home reduces the risk of dying in a home fire by more than half. That's 54%. However, roughly 3 out of 5 fire deaths occur in homes with either no smoke alarms or no working smoke alarms. More than 1/3, and that's 38% of home fire deaths result from fires in which no smoke alarms are present. Lemon Grove's residents should practice home fire safety by installing smoke alarms in every bedroom, outside sleeping areas, and on other levels of the home. Test smoke alarms at least once a month and replace them after 10 years, or at a point where they stop responding when tested. Lemon Grove residents are responsive to public education measures and are able to take action to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. The 2024 Fire Prevention Week theme, smoke alarms, make them work for you, effectively serves to help us better understand the importance of having working smoke alarms. Now, therefore, I, Raquel Vasquez, Mayor for the City of Lemon Grove, together with the City Council, do hereby proclaim October 6th through the 12th, 2024 to be Fire Prevention Week in the City of Lemon Grove. And we urge all residents of the City of Lemon Grove to test their smoke alarms once a month. These efforts support many public safety activities of the City of Lemon Grove fire and emergency services. So let's recognize that Fire Prevention Week is important, and I encourage each and every one of you to test your fire alarms. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to our public safety folks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, respected members of the council. I do want to introduce you to our interim fire marshal, Chuck Strickland, who's here with me to receive the proclamation. And what I do want to say is, fire alarms save lives. No joke. They truly save lives. They only work if they're in working conditions. So, as the proclamation mentioned, the message to the public is please make sure you have a working smoke alarm in your residence so your life can be saved by the smoke alarm. I'm going to turn it over to our fire marshal for any words of wisdom.
Thank you, Chief. I will just briefly follow up that in the proclamation, it says to have a smoke alarm in every bedroom, outside the sleeping quarters, and on every level of your house. New smoke alarms that you'll get today are have a 10-year life battery, so you don't have to worry about changing the battery. But I would encourage everybody with the time change, if you have the older style, to change your battery at that time. And just please make sure your smoke alarms are working. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much, and now we will join you with the proclamation to take photos. Thank you. Moving on to our general public comment portion of the meeting. During the general public comment portion of this meeting, the public may express their concerns not pertaining to items on the agenda tonight. Please note that in accordance with state law, the city council is not permitted to respond to any comments expressed by the public. If appropriate, staff will be directed to follow up with the speaker. Per Lemon Grove's Municipal Code, Chapter 2.14.150, all remarks must be addressed to the city council as a body and not to any individual council member. Each speaker will have a maximum of 3 minutes. When speaking, please observe the green, yellow, and red light timer at the podium. The red light indicates that it is time for the next speaker to approach the podium to begin speaking. I do have the speakers list here, and I'll start with John L. Wood, followed by Ken Creed.
John L. Wood. First, the pump station. I didn't create it. Mr. Wimmer, who was the former city engineer, did. Why is it taking 3 years to upgrade the thing? If you can't afford to upgrade it, why don't you get a grant? And I haven't been paid for the temporary easement for the developer or other contractor. Why haven't you moved the meter box? You don't wanna deal with SDG&E, is that it? Apparently nobody cares. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ken King, followed by Susanna Hells.
Sergeant, can you hold Mr. Castell's hand, because he's afraid that I'm physically hold something? Because he was out of line last meeting. Sleeping Cabins on Troy Street, it's
Can't
been
hear
4
you.
months. Sleeping Cabins on Troy Street, it's been 4 months. None of you guys have done anything about it. We wanna know why, other than the fact that half of you guys are putting stuff in your pocket or pushing this along, trying to keep us out of the loop. The people of Lemon Grove do not want it. We want to vote on it. What should you, other than you're incompetent? I don't understand. All the signs that are up for everybody's political campaign. 3 people that I'm looking at right now. You're strapping them to telephone poles, illegal. You're having events at public parks, illegal. You're having the fire department come to your event, illegal. Yes, shake your leg, go ahead. You know you got caught, and you have all your little people trying to change the narrative. Lydia, you need to do your job and make sure that these people are doing their job. Which means the fire department. They're not supposed to be going to political events.
Thank you very much. I would like to remind the audience, per Lemon Grove's Municipal Code, Chapter 2.14.150, and that is the law, all remarks must be addressed to the city council as a body and not at any one individual council member. I will move on to Susanna Hells, followed by Brenda Hammond.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, and everyone in attendance tonight. As some of you may know, my name is Susanna Hales, and I'm a firefighter here in Lemon Grove. I've never spoken at a council meeting before, so for those of you that don't know me, I'd like to start by telling you a little about myself. I realized my career dream when I had the distinct privilege of being hired as a firefighter in Lemon Grove back in 2007. In the 17 years since then, I've taken on the roles of firefighter, paramedic, engineer, line medic on wildfires traveling all over the state, camp counselor at Burn Institute's Camp Beyond the Scars, a background investigator, served on multiple committees, became the Lemon Grove Firefighter Association's PAC chair, and during all of this, somehow, I became a wife and mother of twins. Today I come to you as a representative of Heartland Firefighters of Lemon Grove, Local 2728, and I'm here with the hope that you can get to know not just me, but us better as well. While many generally know what our job consists of, rendering aid to the ill or injured, responding to traffic collisions and vehicle rescues, fighting structure fires and brush fires, our off-duty volunteerism and fundraising efforts may be slightly less well known. After our 18 members are relieved after their 24-hour shifts, they can be seen off-duty in Lemon Grove and countywide throughout the year, raising funds for the Burn Institute with the boot drive, participating in, and hopefully winning, the Sir Optimus and Lions Club's chili cook-off, serving food to children at the Junior Adaptive Sports Camp, and sponsoring the Lemon Grove Little League, as a few. We raise money for our charitable fund by partnering with and selling concessions at city public events, such as concerts and movies in the park, as well as Lemon Grove's A Extravaganza. With the charitable funds we raise, we have donated to causes such as Susan G. Komen, ALS, October Stash, San Diego Fire Relief Association, as well as many local causes, including annually sponsoring the Lemon Grove Family in Need for Christmas. It is with all of that in mind, and in honor of Fire Prevention Week, that I would like to extend the invitation to everyone to attend our biggest fundraiser of the year. On Saturday, October 26th, we will be hosting a Halloween-themed pancake breakfast and fundraiser at the fire station. This event will go from 8 a.m. till noon. There will be a costume contest for kids age 1 to 11, and we will be selling a limited amount of these t-shirts with our new Lemon Grove Pride logo on the back and the City of Lemon Grove on the front. All proceeds from the event will go to our charitable account to be used to continue to give back to the community. This event was a great success last year, our first time doing the Halloween theme, and a ton of fun, so we hope we'll see everybody there. There are flyers on the table for anyone interested, and we'll be hanging some banners soon. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so very much. And finally, to end our public comment portion of the meeting, we will end it with Brenda Hammond.
Ready for some fun? So, I'm gonna share with you what I shared in El Cajon about their Oktoberfest. They're starting their Oktoberfest with all the Germans that they have in El Cajon and everywhere. So, my mother is German. My father is full-blooded Bohemian. So that makes me. And they laughed in El Cajon. You can laugh if you want. Proud to be a cracker. So, and so when these groups of people out there scream and yell about being a certain race, and whatever it may be, I say, I'm Bohemian, because there's no superior race, and there's no giving back to people for, you know what, they use Asian people to build our railroads. You don't see them out there asking for stuff. Anyway, I'm not gonna get into that. So, but because I'm a cracker, that doesn't mean, and Mayor Wells knows about this, I'm not gonna crack. You guys know this story. So, my point is, we're all different and we come from different heritages. There is no superior heritage. Remember the crayons I brought? So, when people talk about people of color, give me a break. There's a white crayon in that crayon box. So let's stop this saying we're superior and all this stuff. And that goes for everybody, not just people of color. And oh, I wanna I congratulated La Mesa for using their local business for their city trucks that they're gonna buy. And that's great. So what I don't like is our Little League and our schools are not using our local Berries athletic supply. They're buying their stuff from other people and it's not right. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, the city has received written general public comment by email. Copies of these letters are available for the public as soon as you enter the community center and placed on the public review table off to the right. Additionally, all members on the dais have been provided with copies of the letters.
Thank you so very much. We will now move on to our consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor and Council Collins, I'd like to pull the payment demands, sorry, that's the city's monthly expenditure list. I'd like to pull that from the consent calendar, just so that we can discuss a couple of these public expenditures before the public. Do I have anybody's support?
Do we have support, to pull the payment demand? That request fails. And,
Thank you.
with that said, do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. I'll ask our city clerk to call the roll.
The motion was made by Mayor Pro Tem Mendoza with a second by Councilmember Snow to approve the consent calendar. I will now conduct the roll to go on the record. Councilmember Snow,
Aye.
Councilmember Gastel,
Aye.
Councilmember LeBaron,
Councilmember LeBaron, there's some pretty large legal expenses that I believe we should be discussing in front of the public, and because we're not willing to do so, I am gonna be voting no on the consent calendar. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Mendoza,
Aye.
Mayor Vasquez.
Aye.
The motion carries on a vote of 4-1.
Thank you so very much. Item number 2 is a public hearing. This is a continuance of the open public hearing to consider appeal number AA2-200-0010 regarding the planning commission approval of conditional use permit number CUP-220-00001. Under the consideration is a wireless communications facility that would include a 70-foot mono broadleaf tower and associated equipment at the property located at 6970 San Miguel Avenue, APN 479-240-06-00 in the residential low medium zone. City clerk, have all the notices required by law, have those been given? And, we would like to know if the complete file of exhibits, correspondence, and other documents, have those been provided?
Madam Mayor, all notices as required by law have been given and all documents and corresponding exhibits have been provided.
I will turn it over to our city attorney to ask council if they have any disclosures, conflicts of interest related to this item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just go one by one and ask the city council to report any ex parte communications or conflicts, and I'll start with Councilmember LeBaron.
Councilmember LeBaron, I have nothing to report.
Thank you. Councilmember Snow?
I don't have any ex parte communications, but I live within 500 feet of the proposed, tower, and so I'm not eligible to be able to.
Thank you. So, if you recuse, then please exit the room while we consider this item, and we'll be in contact with you to call you back when it's complete. I'll move immediately to, Mayor Pro Tem Mendoza as well.
I have the same issue.
So you'll be recusing yourself, is that correct?
I'm told that I have to.
Thank you. It's a record, so we wanna make sure that we have it.
I don't want to.
Thank you. Councilmember Gastel.
I have nothing to report.
Thank you. And Mayor Vasquez.
I have nothing to disclose.
Thank you.
I will now turn it over to Michael Fellows, our Community Development Manager, to present the staff report.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. It's a pleasure to present this item tonight. As mentioned, this item is an appeal of Planning Commission's approval of a wireless facility proposed at 6970 San Miguel Avenue. You're gonna go through the project history, location, project details, Planning Commission's decision, the appeal, staff's response, and then close with staff's recommendation. Next slide. Here we have the project timeline. This UP application for a wireless communications facility was originally submitted on December 20th, 2022. It went through a series of reviews and resubmittals where staff and the applicant addressed a variety of issues that included the mono broadleaf tree design, equipment enclosure replacement, and the planting of oak trees on the site. On April 22nd, 2024, the Planning Commission held a public hearing, listened to public comments, and voted to conditionally approve the project. On May 1st, 2024, the project was appealed to City Council. On May 21st, 2024, the City Council held an appeal hearing and remanded the project back to the Planning Commission. On July 22nd, 2024, the Planning Commission held a public hearing, listened to public comment, and voted to conditionally approve the remanded project. The approval had one change, that it relocated the antenna tower approximately 60 feet south from its original location. On July 30th, 2024, the project was appealed to City Council. The appeal was scheduled for September 17th, 2024, where it was opened and continued to tonight's hearing. Next slide. The subject property is located in the northwestern part of town on the north side of San Miguel Avenue between Massachusetts Avenue and Federal Boulevard. The property is developed with a church building that is located towards the front of the property, about 40 feet from San Miguel Avenue. There is a large parking lot located behind the church. Next slide. The subject property is a 3.69 acre rectangular lot with 200 feet of frontage on San Miguel Avenue and is about 640 feet. The property is zoned RLM, residential low medium, and the general plan and land use plan designates the property as public institutional. Next slide. Here we have a front elevation of the church looking northwest from San Miguel Avenue. Next slide. As mentioned, the Planning Commission held a public hearing and approved the wireless communications facility that includes a 70-foot tower disguised as a broadleaf tree. Planning Commission decided to relocate the tower 60 feet south to alleviate views from the properties near Cedral Place and allowed staff to request a rehearing if unanticipated issues arise. Also approved was a CMU blocking equipment enclosure that would be about the size of a standard parking space, 8 feet wide by 20 feet long and 9 feet tall. This full enclosure would house and conceal cellular equipment. Planning Commission left the equipment shelter in the same location as the original approval, since this location would be less visible, easier to screen with landscaping, and would not result in lost parking spaces. The applicant would also be planting 7 Virginia live oak trees that grow approximately 50 to 70 feet tall. 2 sycamore trees are their native equivalents. There would also be shrubs and ground cover added to the site. Next slide. Here we have a layout that was approved by Planning Commission. The relocated tower is shown in yellow, the equipment enclosure in orange, the proposed oak trees are solid green, and the sycamore trees are green and purple. To the right is a zoom site plan focusing on the locations of the tower and the equipment enclosure. As mentioned, this approval was similar to the previous one, except for the relocation of the tower 60 feet south to the first plan, visible when entering the parking lot. The original antenna is shown in gray. Next slide. Here's a similar perspective with the satellite view. Next slide. Here we have photos facing north. The left photo shows the approximate location of where the equipment enclosure was approved, and the right shows where the tower was approved. Next slide. This elevation details the height of the proposed tower and the antennas, along with other details of the facility. Next slide. Staff recommended and Planning Commission adopted the same conditions related to the design of the mono broadleaf tree that were included in the original approval. These conditions include requirements for branching density, length of branches relative to the antennas, canopy shape, 3-dimensional bark and branch cladding, and antenna sockets. Planning Commission was able to, next slide. Planning Commission was able to make all the required findings to approve the project, including that the use is compatible with the neighborhood or community, the use is not detrimental to health, safety, convenience, or general welfare of persons residing in the vicinity. The use complies with the performance standards according to section 17-24080. The use is consistent with applicable provisions of the particular zoning district and with policies and standards of the general plan. These findings are shown here on this slide. Next slide. On July 30th, 2024, staff received an application for an appeal of the Planning Commission approval. After reviewing and considering points in the appeal, staff developed responses. The first objection is that the applicant failed to take into consideration community concerns and continues to propose an identical project to the one sent back to Planning Commission by City Council on May 21st, 2024, and that the applicant has not considered any alternatives that have been suggested by City Council or the community. Staff's response is that the applicant considered revising the project based on concerns expressed at the previous appeal hearing. However, the applicant decided to proceed with the original design since Planning Commission could either approve the original design or provide parameters for redesign. Planning Commission ultimately favored the current design and voted to approve the project as it was originally approved, except for the relocation of the tower. Next slide. The appeal asserts that there continues to be concerns with the visual impact of the proposed tower, especially regarding height, location, and type of camouflage. No efforts were made by the applicant to address these concerns. Staff's response is that concerns by neighbors regarding aesthetic design of the project was brought to Planning Commission's attention both at the Planning Commission hearing and in the staff report. The Planning Commission voted to approve the project for a second time with the current design except for the relocated tower. Next slide. The appeal specifies that the staff report asserts that there is no fiscal impact on the project, but these projects are known to reduce nearby property values and reduce future tax revenues of the city. The proposed location is tax exempt and the city will see no revenue from the potential value of the project. Staff's response is that the fiscal impact section of the staff report analyzes the revenue expenditure impacts on the city's budget. In this case, there will be no significant impact on either. Next slide. The appeal asserts that the city standards need to be improved to reflect neighboring jurisdictions such as the County of San Diego. This project should not be approved until the standards are updated. Staff's response is that city standards for wireless facilities could be modified. However, it is not appropriate to hold this project to standards that do not exist in Lemon Grove or have a moratorium on facilities until this update is completed. Again, this project meets all requirements of the city's code and should be approved. Next slide. In conclusion, the project is consistent with the general plan and zoning code in that the use meets zoning height requirements and is an allowable use in the zone with approval of a conditional use permit. This project has been approved twice by Planning Commission and the relocated tower is in a location behind the church building that reduces its visibility from the most homes. The operating equipment would be completely screened from view since it is located in an enclosure surrounded by landscaping and meets setback requirements. Next slide. Staff's recommendation is to adopt a resolution upholding the Planning Commission's decision to conditionally approve conditional use permit number CUP 220-0001 and finding the project is exempt from CEQA pursuant to section 15303, allowing for a wireless communications facility at 6970 San Miguel Avenue in the residential low medium zone. This concludes staff's presentation. Staff is available for questions.
Thank you so very much. Because Councilmember LeBaron has stepped away from the platform, we actually have to wait for her to return in order to proceed. So we will take a momentary break, and when she returns to the platform, we will resume this particular agenda item. We will now resume our meeting, and thank you so very much for the presentation. I will now ask the appellant, Jason Dunberg to come to the podium. And you will have 15 minutes to make your presentation. Jason?
These aren't my slides. Good evening, honorable members of the Lemon Grove City Council. I am a resident of Lemon Grove who cares about my community. I come before you to speak on behalf of my neighbors. Most of us are not opposed to this technology. We all use it, carry it in our pockets. But we are worried about the current design. No one is asking for this project. Everyone has excellent cell service. FirstNet is not even the preferred network for most first responders that I talk to. So where is the need? There have been many concerns raised about the project. We are unhappy that these have been ignored and brushed aside with no analysis of the alternatives conducted. The project is unchanged. The issue should be addressed by the full city council, since the applicant wants this to be the standard for the community. Let's take a breath and let's get this right. You have the discretion to deny this application or impose conditions on the conditional use permit. Some of the concerns the community has surrounding this project are the visual impacts. The bulk and scale of this tower is increasing the visual pollution of our community. Nothing in the vicinity is 70 feet tall. No building, no tree, or anything else. This will loom over our skyline for decades. The proposed trees to screen it would take close to 30 years to get anything close to the height required. This does not blend into our neighborhood and can be seen from Central Avenue, San Miguel, Lemonwood, Mercury, Cedral, 94, and further. The county does not allow this size of tower in residential areas. These towers are reserved for industrial areas or in the mountains. The council can impose a condition that lowers the height or requires a different design. There are safety concerns regarding this facility. The equipment enclosure includes battery storage, which is similar technology to the batteries that caught fire in Escondido in early September. This could be dangerous if the fire were to spread into the nearby canyon. The council can impose a condition that the enclosure be moved away from trees and into the middle of the parking lot so it'd be easier to access in case of fire and further from natural vegetation. The fake tree design increases the risk of falling debris, such as fake branches which can be hundreds of pounds. The fake leaves and other camouflage will break down, releasing plastic debris, becoming pollution. This includes microplastics, plastic litter, larger pieces that can wash into storm drains, potentially causing obstructions. The council can impose conditions that require the property owner to street sweep monthly and improve the storm drain inlets. There are still outlying environmental issues with this project. If the council were to request a California Environmental Quality Act analysis, this would ease many of the concerns of the community. Don't just let this slip by past the normal environmental process that most large projects are required to go through. I just mentioned some water quality concerns. Why is there no stormwater pollution prevention program associated with this project, which is also typical of most development projects? I've discussed the biological concerns at length in written comments over the many months as outlined. There are known sensitive species occurring adjacent to the proposed location of the equipment enclosure. No biological surveys or record searches have been conducted. This risks the applicant committing take of threatened or endangered species, which could result in fines or delays to their project. The council can impose conditions that require surveys prior to approval, or simply move the equipment enclosure away from the natural slope. This project is detrimental to our community. The applicant is not part of our community and is only solely profit motivated. This proposed project would result in economic harm to our community. Property values in the immediate area can be reduced 25% when the cell tower is visible. This lowers assessed values in the immediate area around $4 million, reducing the property tax revenue the city can bring in. This also burdens homeowners with less equity in order to make improvements and increase housing stock through ADUs. It also cascades into the real estate comparables, lowering appraised values all around Lemon Grove. Cell towers must be listed on real estate disclosures as a known nuisance when selling the home. Many of us would not have moved to a place where this kind of facility was so close to our homes. There is no offsetting gain by the city. This is on tax exempt property and does not increase property values with this improvement. This kind of visual pollution will dampen the pride of our neighborhood. There's a matter of equity here, in that this kind of project would never be built in an affluent neighborhood like La Jolla. Why should the residents of Lemon Grove deserve less? We deserve to be treated equally and have proposed projects take into consideration the residents' concerns. The council can deny the project as currently designed or impose a condition that assesses an annual permanent maintenance fee to offset some of these negative effects. Many community members have suggested alternatives to the current design. Like the previously approved cell antenna at this location, which was mounted on the roof, the large, flat roof has been suggested as a place to place antennas that could accomplish the goals the applicant wishes to accomplish. The roof is a secure, dedicated space with safe access. This is far less intrusive option and would likely cost less for the applicant to construct. There's other locations on the property that have also been suggested closer to the building. There are architectural camouflage options that would help the antennas blend into the existing building use and facade. Some mimic church architecture, such as bell towers, steeples, and crosses. Some look like clock towers and cupolas. If rooftop antennas were used, they'd only need to match the color of the existing building. This would also eliminate the issue of plastic debris shed from the fake tree design and be less visually intrusive. All these options are much more acceptable to the community, but were not seriously analyzed by the applicant. Even a simple monopole placed close to the building and painted a matching color would be more acceptable than visually bulky fake tree design. These can be disguised as standalone steeples, crosses, and bell towers. This site has not been thoroughly justified. No one in the area is lacking cellular service, no matter which carrier. The applicant was provided with a list of 15 other sites, including elevation and line of sight information. But this list was brushed aside and not analyzed earnestly. The County of San Diego requires alternatives analysis for telecommunication permits, including coverage heat maps for alternative sites. The county typically does not allow cell towers more than 50 feet in residential areas without thorough justification. They also request secret analysis for most sites. The council can impose conditions that require the full analysis of the alternative designs and alternative sites. This should be reviewed by a third-party expert. If the applicant wants to propose a project detrimental to our community, it should be required that they prove the necessity of it and demonstrate their honest assessment of alternatives. The city has discretion. This is a conditional use, and the council has every right to deny the permit or add conditions which must be met to maintain the permit. There's existing guidance in the general plan. The proposed project is in direct opposition to the language in the telecommunications section of the general plan. To avoid community impacts, the city will promote co-locating new cellular and wireless facilities with existing utility infrastructure, locating facilities in non-residential areas, and facility designs that blend with the surrounding area. This project design does not do any of those. The Telecommunications Act of 1996 is not handcuffs for the city. There is local case law that supports the city in setting conditions before the approval of the project. This law binds the applicant to the least intrusive option, and we can require that they prove it. The project should be denied until we as a community and city agree on standards for telecommunication structures. This requires the input and advice of the full city council so we can bring the community members and stakeholders together and find common sense standards that prioritize Lemon Grove residents and streamline the process for applicants. The city enacted an ordinance to regulate massage parlors, and we can do the same for other land uses that are detrimental to our community. Let's incentivize taller towers in commercial zones and allow only inconspicuous ones in residential areas. I provided an outline for an ordinance based on other local regulations and concerns that I heard from my neighbors. I urge the council to deny the permit for this project and enact a citywide regulation on telecommunications facilities like other municipalities in our region have, or impose significant conditions to curtail the negative effects on our community. The council can impose a condition that lowers the height of the tower or requires a different design. The council can impose a condition that the enclosure be moved away from the trees and into the middle of the parking lot so it'd be easier to access in case of fire and further from natural vegetation. The council can impose conditions that requires the property owner to street sweep monthly and improve storm drain inlets. The council can impose conditions that require environmental surveys prior to approval or simply move the equipment enclosure away from the natural slope. The council can deny the project as currently designed and impose a condition that assesses an annual permit maintenance fee. The council can impose conditions that require the full analysis of the alternative designs and alternative sites with an independent third-party review to assess the veracity of information that is provided. Before we just concede to the persistent demands of a major telecom company, let us as a community pause and think on what we want our neighborhoods to look like. This size and design does not blend into the neighborhood. It does not belong in a residential area. This is an opportunity to deny visual pollution that may last for decades and detract from our community for years to come. Lemon Grove has great potential and can be so much better. Denying this project is a start. I urge you to side with regular residents and families rather than outside interests. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. What I will do is a round of questions from the city council members, and I will start with Councilmember LeBaron.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. City staff gave a thorough presentation. Let us know that not much has changed from when we originally heard on this topic a few meetings ago. This, what is this, like the second, third time that we're hearing this now? A lot of this stuff has been repetitive. We've already heard this at great length, so I do not have any questions right now for, I don't have any questions right now for the thought. Thank you for the thorough presentation.
Councilmember Gaston?
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the stormwater, because if I'd heard this issue before, I missed it. Of the other things I think I've heard before, I was gonna ask if our staff had any comment on, whether it would be feasible to monitor the stormwater, and whether we have an assessment of whether our current systems would be capable of handling any possible issues. And I think it relates to concerns about the fake trees possibly falling apart. I wonder if staff wants to comment.
So the city utilizes consultants named DMAX who provide stormwater services to a lot of cities in the region. And the city stormwater consultants reviewed the project, and it was their opinion that the project does not create water quality concerns. They specified that the project itself does not constitute an activity that would create pollutants of concern permanently, and that would require permanent pollutant control. So does not create those issues. Similar to some uses that may, such as restaurants, automotive shops, and other commercial businesses.
Thank you. That was my only question.
Thank you so very much, and I do not have any questions at this time, but what I will do is a second round, just to check it, make sure, that we don't have any more questions for the appellate while he's here at the podium, and so I'll start with, Councilmember LeBaron.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, Mr. Sundberg, you had stated something to the effect of the county doesn't allow construction of cell phone towers this site. Can you go into that again? Can you just reiterate and elaborate on that real quick for all of us?
So in the documents that I provided, I did provide the county's regulations on it. It's buried, there's a lot of pages in things that are provided, but there is generally, and a lot of times the county does approach it on a case-by-case basis, but in a typical situation, the county wants to put these things like on hills by water towers, which are public facilities, and wouldn't create like a visual impact because there's already a water tower there. It's just like our city's own general plan, which wants to put them co-located with other utilities. So the county requires that the applicants provide alternatives analysis. So if an applicant wants to put it in a residential area where it doesn't seem like the best fit, the county requires that the applicant basically prove that this is the only location location that's gonna work by having them analyze at least 3 or 4, other locations, very similar to what they did, the one analysis for the single location in the report.
Thank you. And you've done your research very thoroughly. And according to our Lemon Grove City's general plan, the city's intention is that things of this nature, projects like this, be constructed next to other utilities. Is that correct?
Yeah, I read the section that relates to it. It's very short. It's, to avoid community impacts, the city will promote co-locating new cellular and wireless facilities with existing utility infrastructure, locating facilities in non-residential areas, and facility designs that blend with the surrounding area.
Got you. So to avoid community impacts, not in residential areas, or
Correct.
other things that are similar use, that none of which is so this is not near anything else that's similar use, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Councilmember Gaston?
I don't have any other questions right now.
Thank you so very much. I will now call on the appellant, Harold Thomas Jr. I'm sorry, the applicant, thank you. So we'll call on the applicant, Harold Thomas Jr. with MD7 Incorporated, and the applicant will have 15 minutes to make his presentation.
Good evening, council members. I should be able to stand for you. And the audience for being here as well as Mr. Jason Sumberg for your presentation. Sorry, no worries. I do want to take the time to thank you, Jason, for your presentation.
Could you hold up the mic
Right
to your,
here?
much closer?
Apologies.
Thank you.
So, we'd like to thank everyone. Last time I did stand before you guys, it was on May 21st. During that meeting, there were questions and concerns about alternative designs, sites. Heard that from members of council, who also heard from Mr. Sumberg as well. It was decided on that day to be able to take this back to the planning commission, to see if we can find any alternatives. During that time, AT&T and MB7 took some time to listen to the thoughts and points that were raised, to be able to provide an answer. When we went to the planning commission on July 22nd, we presented our findings before them. They did approve of the project. However, one of the commissioners had asked us to do one thing, which was to be able to relocate the tower to the planter directly to the south. The reasoning for that was that they thought that it would be able to provide much more screening, given that the trees in front were fully matured in height. With that knowledge, we took that, and then up until today, let me rephrase that, and today, with our new plans, our tree has been relocated to that planter to the south. That's why tonight, that we're requesting respectfully that you would affirm the planning commission's decision that was made and deny the appeal. So I want to thank Mr. Fellows for his presentation, as he gave a very thorough analysis. All I want to do is just add little extra points to Mr. Fellows' presentation. Next slide. I want to share again before the council as well as members in the audience about FirstNet. What FirstNet is that this is a nationwide high-speed broadband network that is used to be able to aid and assist first responders. All that this is that it just aids, provides extra aid to them so they can, for their job. AT&T is the sole provider of this network, and just to make it noted that FirstNet has been adopted by San Diego Police Department, San Diego County Sheriff's Department, San Diego County Human Health Services agencies. So there are other jurisdictions, the county as well, that has adopted this, seen it as a benefit. That's why we're also proposing to bring it here for the installation of this facility. Now, one of the things that I did know, I read through the general plan myself, because that's something that I did after seeing, the council and going back to the planning commission. So I heard the concerns, and when I was reading it, I saw on page 214, under the telecommunications objective 3.0, it reads, state-of-the-art telecommunication services. Policy 3.1 encourages telecommunications service providers to install state-of-the-art infrastructure. I firmly believe, AT&T firmly believes, that FirstNet is state-of-the-art because of its benefits to our first responders. It's also state-of-the-art in that, in our design, with it being a mono broadleaf tree, we're installing 4 branches per foot. Mr. Sundberg had showed a presentation on his, with some trees that were not screened. I can say that those are not AT&T because AT&T does not have that standard. AT&T standard is to have 4 branches per foot. Because we've seen what poorly designed trees are, and that's not what we're intending to bring here. Next slide, please. This is the current view looking at San Miguel. Next slide, please. So last time I stood before you, this was where our tree currently stood. It's hard to tell on this perspective, but our tree is one planter directly north of where we're proposing. If you move to the next slide, you're gonna see that it's been brought closer. Again, this was at the request of the commissioners that we bring it closer. So what we did was we took what was said and we responded by bringing it closer. Next slide, please. This is a view looking at it from Cedro Place. Again, you're gonna notice, and this was one of the points that the previous commissioner had noticed. The area to the far right is where we have already fully mature trees. His request is that we move our construction to the south side. It would be near those trees. Do the next slide, please. At the city's request, at the commissioner's request, as they approved, we did move it so that those trees that are in the front are able to provide some screening. You also notice, even though it's hard in this perspective, there are trees to the back, to the south, to the back. They're also providing that perspective. Next slide, please. Sorry, I apologize, this is the new location. I was moving too fast. But you do see that it is right there. Next slide, please. This perspective is what it looks like viewing from the parking lot. You can do the next slide. This is exactly where our proposed equipment enclosure is gonna go, those proposed trees. Now, one of the reasons why we chose in this specific location, one is that we're abiding by the setbacks. We're not asking for any exceptions on the setbacks, we're abiding by that. But one of the things is that according to section 17.24.080.3J, it states that installation of communication facilities shall not result in the elimination of parking spaces. One of the points that was raised by Mr. Sundberg is to move our equipment enclosure to a parking space to be able to have it there. The reason why we did not do that is because, again, AT&T took the time to read through the city code as well as the general plan. Make sure that we are presenting something before you that, as Mr. Fellows has shared, is compliant with the code. Compliant with the code section 17.24.080.3J. That's the reason why we have that there. We also made sure that we were proposing, as requested by the commission, native trees that were native to Lemon Grove, which we have the California sycamore, to be in the 24-inch box, and the Deodara cedar. So again, taking what the feedback, making sure that we produce it for you today. Next slide, please. Now, one of the points to note in Mr. Sundberg's presentation is that he did show the view of this, except from where the houses are at. Only part that's missing is that on this slide, we're proposing to be planting 5 trees. You're gonna see that in the next slide. Now, you're gonna see that we have those 5 trees in the back, but you're also gonna see something different that you didn't see the last time I stood before you, which is a tree in the parking lot. Reason why, because we were working with Mr. Fellows, and he said that he wanted it was to have a tree in the parking lot. That was also something that the commissioners had asked. So what we did additionally is to make sure that we planted there We're not only planning to be able to show you exactly where that's gonna be at, because our job is to be honest before you. You're gonna see that that is exactly where it's gonna be planted. Now, we will be removing that broken light pole, because it's not gonna stay there, but that's where the tree is gonna be planted. Next slide, please. Objective. There have been, and I have heard, different views about the objective. I need to make sure that it's known, I'm not saying that Lemon Grove does not have any coverage at all. I'm not saying that, never have, never will. What I am saying is that our job is just to be able to build on what's already there. Now, current area, even though it's hard to tell from the view, is yellow. In this, we have 4 identifying colors: green, yellow, red, and clear. Green are areas where it's excellent coverage, yellow is fair, red is poor, and then white is areas we have not reached. So far, when we reached out to our RF engineers, and even when we relocated, we had to make sure that the information we provided for you was adequate, and that it was true. They ran the report, they said that even with moving our structure, this area is still there. Next slide, please. But what we do is that through the installation of this, is that we're able to provide excellent coverage to the nearby San Miguel branch area. So again, one of the things that I did read is because I made sure to read through the general plan, because City of Lemon Grove established that for us to be able to abide by, and anybody that else wants to come through City of Lemon Grove. Read section 209 on the general plan and the public facilities element. The community plan to provide and maintain infrastructure and public services. In addition to ensuring that today's residents and businesses are adequately served by infrastructure, the cities and the services, city must make sure that future developments can be served without diminishing service to existing users. This isn't diminishing, given that installation of our facility here is going to be enhancing the coverage. One of the things that I did hear Mr. Sundberg addressed again was that there was no alternative designs, that he made the assumption that we did not take the time to think of alternative designs. Council members, we did take the time to think about it. He mentioned a rooftop. Why did we not choose a rooftop? It's because of these factors. One, we're not able to be.
We're going to have to wait for Councilmember LeBaron to come back to the podium. You may proceed.
Thank you.
You may proceed.
Thank you. So the reason why we couldn't go through a rooftop is because we weren't able to achieve our height. 2, if we were to build something tall, it would not be integrated well with the building, right? Because if we were to build it on top of that, we're running into EME exposure issues. That's something that we're not trying to do. Where we're at currently, we won't be running into that design. Additionally, being on the roof, we're gonna be closer to the houses to the east. That's something that we didn't want to do. Looking at probably about a church, from a steeple, maybe looking at a cross element as Mr. Sundberg had provided. That could not work because it cannot fit inside of our antennas. Our antennas cannot fit within an enclosure like that while still looking visually appealing, not based off of our demands. This is something I made sure to reach out to our RF team, talk about different designs, and this is what they had brought forward before us today. Now, Mr. Sundberg had also mentioned something about stormwater. I was reading through one of the resolutions in that even in the building permit stage, we will have to submit stormwater. So that's not, that's something that we don't just bypass as zoning. This is something that we have to see all the way through. Best management practices, that's something that we have in our plans read. Mr. Bellis has a copy of the plans, it's in the staff report. We have best management practices to make sure that what we're doing is gonna be safe and not detrimental to the community. Mr. Sundberg had raised concern about fire with the batteries. With our equipment, make sure to reach out to the teams, firm. They said that we have thermal electric temperature control units that are within our equipment enclosure to make sure that we keep the battery and the whole enclosure cool to prevent any type of fire outbreak. And then finally, just to draw this to a close, we did receive some comments saying that they were in support of the community, of the structure. That was something that we didn't have last time. Also, what I didn't have before you last time was a member of the church who's also here as well. Remember that being a concern, he's here. I'm reading some of these where it says, "Thank you for your consideration of this matter. From what I understand, there's a proposed 5G tower within the borders of the city. As someone who spends a lot of time using cellular services in Lemon Grove, I support anything that could provide me with better cell coverage." And they go on to express more of their support here. That's one of the notes that we got recently. One that's a little further back, but was still in support, read, "Cell service for those with AT&T that live on San Miguel Street have needed," cell service for those with AT&T that live on San Miguel Street have needed better service for years. At my old house off of San Miguel, I used to have to walk to the backyard to talk on the phone. If one takes the time to look at the coverage map in the staff report, they would see the significance on the site selection. There's no evidence that property values will be affected by this facility. This is about the fear of radiation, the federal law says, not well founded, and cannot be considered by local jurisdiction. Everyone loves their cell phone, but wants the infrastructure in someone else's backyard. Now in this facility will affect a lot of residents in a negative way. Now this report was given by somebody anonymous, but what I'm trying to tell you is that there are people who are in support of this project. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you so very much. And so we will do 2 rounds of questions, starting with Councilmember LeBaron.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, my first question is for you. I'm sorry, I'm noticing that when I'm getting up to use the restroom, you're pausing the meeting. There's no need for that. I might be getting up to go to the restroom. I can hear everything that's happening, so please don't pause the public's business because I need to handle my business in the restroom. I have no questions for you. Thank you so much.
For the record, we need to have a quorum. And that means that because 2 of the council members are not here, we need to have at least 3 people at the platform in order to move forward. So I wanted to create that clarity. If I were to step down, or if Councilmember Gastill were to step down, we would have to pause the meeting. I will go ahead and move on to Councilmember Gastill.
Yeah, I don't think I have a question, but I wanna thank you for all the time and energy you put into answering the many questions, and I also wanna thank, I forgot your name, a person from the church for coming as well. Yeah, and thank you all for the time and energy you put into this.
Thank you so much, and I see that there were 2 things that were changed with this project, and one was the location, moving 60 feet south, and I heard you mention that it could potentially make the signal more impactful in a positive way for those who use cell service. And then that native pest control methods would be utilized. Can you just give me an idea of what native pest controls are?
That one, Mayor Vasquez, I know that.
I'm so sorry, I can't hear you.
No worries. That's something that, unfortunately, I don't know. I know it's something that they do in the field, but I actually have information.
And I'll ask staff if, you could weigh in on what those native pest controls, could potentially be.
During the review process, staff will route the landscape plans to a landscape architect for professional opinions on methods for that. However, it can be, I think it's drainage, you put them near a garden and it's known to, or said to, discourage certain types of insects going near a garden. And so that's one potential method. It could be use of, just organic type materials to, discourage other pests. But ultimately, staff would have a discussion with the landscape architect based on their recommendation of the native pest control methods.
Thank you so very much, cause I just kind of, in looking at the slides, I saw that was noted. I know that some of the concerns were visual impacts and closures and stormwater prevention, and I believe that our planning commission, did a thorough review in their meeting of those concerns, and really just came up with 2 recommendations, which was the relocation of the antenna and then the native pest control method. Otherwise, the agenda item was able to pass. So I do not have any more questions at this time. I will do one more round of questions, starting with Councilmember LeBaron.
I don't have any questions, thank you, and thank you so much for the presentation.
Councilmember Gaston.
I don't have any questions.
And I do not have, any additional questions, right now. So, we will now move on to public comments, starting with Jessica Heredia, followed by John O. Wood. And while Jessica is preparing to speak, I will let everyone know in the audience that if you wish to speak on this matter, you may fill out a speaker slip for this item, and you would just submit your speaker slip to our city clerk, and I will turn it over to Jessica Heredia. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, I'm not opposed to this project or particularly in favor of the project, but I just want to say this is a really great, opportunity for the city council to consider really looking at the general plan and our zoning laws and updating them and taking the time and the energy to do so, because as we're approving projects, we're approving things sometimes that don't really benefit the community as a whole. And with just a little bit of energy and, speaking together as a council to come with ideas that are modern, and today I've spoken with staff, and a lot of the stuff that's in the general plan hasn't been updated ever. In fact, much of it is that way, and that we've only been updating it as things come up like this. And so I understand that, we do what we can with what we have, but I think this is one of those things where it's an investment into our community, and we really need to prioritize that ASAP. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have John L. Wood, followed by Scott Miller.
Are these microwaves harmful to humans? Because I used to live in Cerro Mesa. We had high tension electrical cables, transmission cables going through our backyard. You could hear them cracking all the time. I'm sure you can't hear microwaves cracking, but they cracked all the time. I had a little sister at the time. She played in the backyard all the time. The electric EMFs, electromagnetic fields, killed her. She was 7 years old when she died because of getting leukemia. They have since downsized the cables, so there's not so much EMFs. But the entire street where my family lived, the people my parents knew, every member of their family contracted some kind of leukemia or other disease from living underneath those power cables. So I was just wondering if the microwaves were harmful to humans, or do you even know if they're harmful to humans? Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Next, we have Scott Miller, followed by Taylor Farson.
Greetings, members of the City Council who represent our beloved city of Lemon Grove. My name is Scott Miller. I am speaking on behalf of the Christian Church of Lemon Grove as the chairman of the elders, and with my family and I have been members of for the past 20 years. As for the church itself, we have been a vibrant part of the community since 1963. During our rich history here in Lemon Grove, our church family has continually sought how to be the best neighbor and community partner we can by offering various services and opportunities to help the people around us. That's why we decided to start a preschool program in 1975. Through our preschool, God has blessed us with the ability to serve families in Lemon Grove and the surrounding communities to have a safe, clean, and wholesome environment for their children to grow and learn. We also partner with and offer an after-school program for children at San Miguel Elementary School, in which we have continued to offer help and show support in any way that we can, whether that was providing backpacks and dry erase boards to students and families, or helping the faculty and teachers receive the teaching supplies that they need for the start of the school year, or even to provide a helping hand with some food and gifts to help families connect to the school around Thanksgiving and Christmas time. In November 2020, during COVID, our church recognized a huge need in our community when it came to food shortages and families in need. So we started our neighborhood food distribution. This partnership with Feed America and the St. Louis Food Bank saw the first few years of our ability to serve almost 260 families. Through the food distribution, and even to date, we continue to serve 180 families a week. We have become a vital source that many folks rely on to help provide for their families. All that to say, we truly take seriously the Bible's instruction in 1 Peter 4:10 that says each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others and faithfully steward God's grace in various forms. That is what we're here to try to do. To be good stewards of everything that God has given us in order to better help the people around us and to love our neighbors as ourselves. In fact, that's what we also partner with other churches in our Lemon Grove community and helped start the Lemon Grove Clergy Association almost 25 years ago. With the help of other churches throughout the Good Friday Community Crosswalk and other community events, our campus is also home to 3 churches that meet on Sunday and throughout the week to provide faith-based opportunities for more than 300 members and weekly attenders. We provide a place to belong and a place for faith-based community. We have come together in many ways to help provide large community events and outreaches in Lemon Grove, such as Vacation Bible School for children, Thanksgiving meals for disconnected families, and homeless shelters, and of course our Harvest Festival, which is on October 31st. We typically see around 1,000 parents and children coming to our community on that day to participate in trunk or treat and other activities that we provide. The point is this: we continue to strive to be a valuable, integral part of our community. And unfortunately, since COVID, like many mid-sized and smaller churches, we have been hit hard by economic downturn and financial stress of our society. We too, like many folks in our community, have struggled to meet our financial needs year after year, and the burden that carries is one that we take
Thank
very
you so
seriously.
very much. We will now move on to the next speaker, which is Taylor Farson, and this will complete the public comment portion of this agenda item. But before we start, we will go ahead and take a break and wait for Councilmember LeBaron to return to the platform. We will now continue with the meeting, and I'll turn it over to Taylor Farson.
Thank you all for gathering today to discuss the issue of the placement of 5G tower. 5G technology promises faster internet speeds and greater connectivity, but at what cost? We are being told to accept this progress without questioning the long-term consequences. However, it's our responsibility to consider health, safety, and well-being of our families and neighbors before allowing such towers to be built in our homes. First, let's talk about the potential health risks. The frequency at which 5G operates is significantly higher than previous networks, which means more concentrated radio frequency radiation. While we're exposed to RF waves through many devices, the close proximity of 5G towers could increase our exposure to these electromagnetic fields. Though the scientific community remains divided, there are studies that raise concerns about the potential long-term effects. Some research suggests that long-term exposure could lead to such issues as headaches, fatigue, or more severe conditions like cancer. Do we really want to gamble with our health waiting for conclusive evidence after the damage might already be done? Next, let's consider the impact on property values. No one wants to live under the shadow of a large, industrial-looking tower. Studies have shown that the presence of cell towers in residential areas can lead to a significant decrease in property values. Potential buyers are likely to shy away from homes near these towers, fearing both aesthetic concerns and health risks. Your home is not just a place to live, it's an investment. Do we want to risk its value for the sake of faster download speeds? Also, the placement of these towers brings environmental concerns. The construction of 5G towers involves heavy machinery and infrastructure, which disrupts the local ecosystem. The towers themselves consume energy, adding to our already mounting environmental challenges. We must ask ourselves, is this the kind of legacy we want to leave for our future generations? Finally, the issue of choice and consent. These towers are often installed without adequately consulting local residents, who are left to deal with the consequences. This decision by the church did not include speaking with local neighbors. I am one, and I don't recall that. The church is supposed to represent community. It also sounds like the families of the preschool were not adequately notified of this, therefore they were not able to have much input. Shouldn't we as a community have a say in whether these towers are placed next to our homes? We are being asked to sacrifice our peace of mind and personal space without being given a fair voice in the process. It just feels like the church is a sellout, and God brings wealth, and if they are not seeing an abundance of it, then maybe they need to look inward. There are better options for that space. In conclusion, we're not against progress or technological advancement, but we have to ask at what cost. The potential health risks, the negative impact on property values, environmental degradation, and the lack of community input are real concerns. It's time we stand together and demand better. Let's push for more research, more community engagement, and more reasonable, responsible placement of these towers. It doesn't take more than a few seconds to research the health effects or any of the things that I have said in this, and you will find your answers.
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to share a quick announcement. The city has received written public comment on this public hearing item. Copies of these letters are available for the public as soon as you enter the community center and situated on the table to the right. Additionally, all members on the dais have been provided with copies of these letters.
Thank you so very much. So we are now closing the public comment period for this agenda item. And I would like to give the applicant, AT&T, the representative, his name is Harold Thomas Jr. I'd like to give him 5 minutes for a rebuttal regarding what was shared.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for giving me the opportunity.
And if you can speak directly into the mic so that we can all hear what you're saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for giving me the opportunity to respond. I also want to thank the members of the public who did come forth and express some concerns. One of the things that we are required to by law, and what we're required to provide to the city whenever we're making a submission for a new wireless facility is to submit a EMU report. Our job is that we're supposed to reach out to a third party, tell them exactly what equipment that we are providing and what we're going to be installing. And it is for them to run the tests and let us know if we will be in compliance with the FCC. one of the things that we did, in addition to moving the tower to the planter to the south, is we had to run a new EME report, just to make sure that the findings were still within compliance. That way, because we weren't gonna be operating off of the old one, given that the position of the tower had moved. When we had done that, we made sure that we shared, again, what the equipment was, but we made sure to also let them know where the tower is now going to be. We left it to our third party to run the tests and their reports, and they had concluded that our facility is compliant with the FCC. Additionally, given the height of the tower, that also helps as well, with some of the concerns because of how tall it is as well. I also have with me this evening, John Heffernan, who's from AT&T External Affairs. John, if you'd like to say anything.
Thanks, Harold, and good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. John Heffernan with AT&T's External Affairs team. So External Affairs at AT&T, we handle government relations and community engagement and a little bit of corporate philanthropy. And I'm just here to support Harold and our vendor partners. So we partner with third-party vendors to do the site acquisition work, right? So they seek out potential sites. They look for willing landlords on private property or sites in the right-of-way, and ultimately, we put it in their hands to make sure that a complete application is submitted to the city. Part of what I do is I get to wear a lot of different hats, put on, and Harold can attest on a lot of conference calls and meetings. My job is to hold our vendors' feet to the fire and make sure that they have submitted everything that the city requires that's consistent with the design standards, consistent with the Muni Code. And in this case, as you heard before the Planning Commission, I mean, we're going back to the end of 2022 when the initial application was submitted. We considered revisions to the original design that the Planning Commission and staff recommended. We were happy to receive the approval originally at the Planning Commission. The appeal happened, we understand that, we support the public's right to come and speak, and that's why we always notice all the surrounding business and residential owners for a new site. And it was, it remanded back to the Planning Commission. We agreed to the recommended revisions, and we were happy to receive a second approval. So here tonight, just to let you know, Harold handles and his firm handles a lot of the cell site acquisition work, but AT&T, whether it's the store on, I think, Franklin, or the Cricket store, or myself, you might see billboards, and you might see a lot of college football sponsorship commercials and think, well, that's AT&T, but actually it's 150,000 people around the world like me, and like our technicians, and like our call center reps. We're AT&T, so we're here, and we don't launch a new site unless there truly is a need. And it was a little difficult to see on the what are called propagation maps. We have a whole army of engineers that monitor our network performance. So when there is a gap, when there is an issue with the performance of our network that we think our customers and your residents deserve, that's when we launch capital, time, and effort to bring a new site to a community. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew that AT&T is here in support of this project. We're happy to receive the approvals at the Planning Commission, and we respectfully request that you affirm that decision. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. And now I will turn it over to the appellant, Jason Sundberg. You will have 5 minutes to give a rebuttal.
Council, can you hear me? Yeah, I outlined many of the concerns, and I still don't feel like any of these concerns have been heard. The applicant claims to have done these analysis of alternative sites and alternative designs, but none of that is transparent. It's all hidden from us. How are we to independently judge the veracity of these claims when they won't show us their work? The county makes them show us their work. I think that the council and the Planning Commission ought to be able to see that they in earnest, looked at these alternative sites. I really think that the area, the College Grove area across the freeway would be an excellent site. It's a large industrial area, it's higher elevation, and it would cover the same area. I think there's some really valid alternative sites about that would be looked at. And I think we have plenty of conditions that could also be applied if the council doesn't want to just outright deny the project and come back to it. I think there's plenty of discretion. This isn't a project supported by our general plan. I can reiterate those conditions if you'd like, because I think they really would answer a lot of the community's concern. And I want to say that we're not just opposed to a cell site. That's not the purpose. The point is the aesthetics and the damage that's being done to our community that isn't being mitigated. Like, the church is my neighbor, it's all of our neighbors, and we like them. We like the church as neighbors, and we support them, and I want them to have the income of the tower. I want them to do good works. And we all do well as a community when they're doing well. I absolutely support them. And we provided a lot of alternatives. They could still get this site, they could still get the lease revenue, but would also allay a lot of the concerns our community has. Especially the height. The height is a really big issue because that tower is very bulky and it will be visible for miles. That is a really big concern because I'm not sure about you, but I don't think you want to look at that every day. Especially when there's much more sleek designs that won't have some of the same issues with the branches dropping potentially onto cars, which in its own right takes up a parking space. So there's no reason that the enclosure can't be moved into the parking lot right next to the base of the tower. That would save you a lot of those environmental issues that have not been addressed and have been completely ignored. I still believe that the street sweeping monthly would be a really good thing to prevent litter. There's already litter coming from these parking lots. And also, if this were to be approved, the benefit goes to like a really slim minority. What about the rest of the residents who are gonna suffer negative financial consequences and not be compensated in any regard? I really am worried about my neighbors and the future of my neighborhood if this project were to go through. And I do think that we, as a city, need to come up with a comprehensive code change to prevent these. Like, I don't really want my neighbors to have to deal with this. Like, this isn't something that I want to do. I'd rather be helping busy bees and doing positive things for my community rather than preventing detrimental projects from occurring. I think we really need to look at and get ahead of these detrimental projects before they get before you or the planning commission. I really would hope that you look at that draft ordinance that I made. But I really urge you to really think about it. This is something that's gonna affect the community for decades in a negative way. And a lot of this technology is probably gonna phase out. It's probably gonna become irrelevant in a decade or so. And instead of leaving an eyesore with us, I really hope that the legacy that you would leave would be to side with us residents and allow us to have our voices heard and actually consider the alternatives that we've proposed in earnest, in full transparency. Please side with the regular residents, the families of our community, rather than outside interests. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. I will ask the council members if they have any questions of the appellant, starting with Councilmember LeBaron.
Jason, in your 5 minutes, you said that you had some conditions that you could go over as citations for how this project does not meet the requirements for the council to vote yes on this. What are those findings or what are those conditions?
The conditions are because it is a conditional use, the council or the planning commission can impose these conditions on approval to allow the project to proceed. And I wanted to present, like I said, I'm not just here to block cellular communications facilities. We're not strictly opposed. We wanted to work together. My contact information was available to the applicant the entire time. They never reached out to any community members to try to see if we could work through this together. They just sort of brushed us aside. And the conditions I made were to alleviate issues that my neighbors and I and everybody, the community has, to make this project a little more gentle and not such a harsh thing in our face. So some of those conditions were to lower the allowable height, or to require a different design rather than the fake tree design, and maybe one of the architectural ones, or even a standalone monopole that's painted like the building, because a big part of our issue is the bulk of this. It's not just the, are the antennas hidden? The antennas can be visible, but they just shouldn't be made more visible by making it look like a tree. The enclosure is an issue because it is right where where there could be potential biological or environmental issues, and I do think that it would be better at the base of the tower, and that's a condition you can set. You can just move the enclosure right near the base of the tower, easy. You could also impose that the property owners street sweep monthly to keep litter and debris out of storm drains. Require that the project improve the storm drains to prevent clogging. And I should mention that there is a clog on this property that regularly floods my backyard. The council can also impose that there be environmental surveys prior to the approval of the project. You could also impose an annual permit maintenance fee to hopefully offset some of the issues that are caused by this, that maybe would fix some of the problems that go unaddressed, which we've all seen the Charlie Brown Christmas tree, and I can imagine coming back here in 10 years and addressing you all and trying to get that fixed. Because once this thing is in, there's no reason that they're gonna maintain it unless there's teeth to these conditions. But I also think that you can impose the condition that before that approval, that they provide the transparency in all the documents that they have shown that they've done the alternatives analysis, just like the county would require of them.
Councilmember Gaston?
I don't have any questions.
Thank you, and I do not have any questions as well. And so, before I close the public hearing, I do want to check with staff to see if there are any additional comments.
Staff has no additional comments, but is available for questions.
I would only add that the federal government is the entity that regulates the emissions that come from telecommunications towers. I think we've covered that in the past, but I want to reiterate that as denying a project because of the emissions is not something that a local government can do. They are required to submit approvals to the federal government that meet federal standards, and so that is completely out of the hands of local government. I just wanted to add that.
And just to clarify, for elected officials, and it's not just Lemon Grove, it's all elected officials, what would be the consequence of denying a project based on emissions or based on community sentiment only?
For local officials, not all government officials, because the FCC does have government officials as well. But for local officials to deny a project because of the emissions, it would be quickly appealed and to the Superior Court or to the federal government, and it would get tossed out. So the legal standard for denying the project because of emissions really isn't something that you all as a local body can consider in approving or denying telecommunications facilities. What you can control and what you can consider is the aesthetics of the tower, in consideration of the service that the provider is attempting to provide, and that it has done its due diligence in ensuring that this is the location that serves its purpose the best, which I think the applicant has spoken to tonight.
Thank you so much, and the appellant, I'll just check one more time to see if there's any other comment, before I close the public hearing.
Well, I think you all have pretty much heard it, that you can deny it on aesthetics, and there are, as long as it isn't the electromagnetic issue, like aesthetics, there's other community concerns that haven't been addressed, and certainly give you, leeway to be able to deny the project, or, as said, it is a conditional use, so you can apply conditions to that use, much of which I've listed. And I highly encourage you to do this, because the community really, in general, doesn't like this project as it's designed. And we really just wanted to be able to work with the applicant, but we were more or less stonewalled. And I just hope that, being a local elected body, that you really just side with residents and not side with outside interests. These people don't live here. The church lives here. We love the church, but AT&T doesn't live here. I doubt that these people have one of these in their backyard. Just think about it, and think about who you serve. You serve the residents of Lemon Grove and not the AT&T executives. Thank you.
Thank you, and I will ask AT&T if you have any final comments as well before I close the public hearing.
I do have just a few final comments. One of the comments regarding the design, I just want to make sure to note that when we submitted the project back on December 20th of 2022, it was submitted as a broadleaf tree. What ended up happening was we received our first round of comments on March 20th of 2023. What the city had asked is they saw that we had a broadleaf tree, but they had also asked if we can show what a mono eucalyptus tree would look like, what a mono palm would look like. And when we resubmit, to have those findings. That's when my fellows had taken over the project. What we ended up doing was we resubmitted that project on May 15th of last year. It was decided on July 7th to stay with the broadleaf tree. So the tree design that we had and that we had followed was recommended by city staff. Now, in regards to the alternative sites, there were alternative sites. Mr. Sundberg had provided some, which I had taken a look at. There's about 9 of them. I could go through a few of them if you'd like. We did at least take a look at 9 sites that Mr. Sundberg had looked at, so we weren't just disregarding his thoughts. We did make sure to take a look, share it with the city. I just want to end off by saying this, is that I do listen and do appreciate the concerns raised by the city, raised by Mr. Sundberg, as well as members in the audience. I just want to make sure that it's known before the council today that since the beginning of this process, AT&T has made sure that we followed every single step, made sure we abided by not only the Lemon Grove Municipal Code, Lemon Grove General Plan, but then finally up into the federal law. And I just want to make sure that it's known that we make sure to stick very closely by that, listen to the concerns, adjust it where we can, and this is our final result. So thank you tonight.
I thank you so very much. We will now close the public hearing. Do I have a motion to close the hearing?
To close the hearing.
And I'll second closing the hearing. I'll ask our city clerk to call the roll.
Motion was made by Councilmember Garcia with a second by Mayor Vasquez to close the public hearing. I will now commit the roll to go on the record. Councilmember LeBaron,
Councilmember Barron, aye.
Councilmember Castillo,
Aye.
Mayor Vasquez.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, and now it's time for council deliberations. I'll start with Councilmember LeBaron.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to point out that sometimes when we're up here as a decision-making body, we're steered in the direction of an agenda or a narrative by city staff, by people who city staff aligns with. And I can say that from a point of me being a planning commissioner. Prior to me being a city council member, it was to the point where I had to tell the head of the development services department to stop calling me before planning commission meetings to tell me how he wanted me to vote. I have my own brain. The point of an advisory board is that we're separate from staff because we are the voice of the community. We all have our separate roles and we balance each other out when we stick to our separate roles and we play our roles well. So speaking to how much discretion and how much authority we have as decision makers over this project, well, to put it simply, we have a lot. We have the authority to deny this project, approve it, to approve it with conditions, and with a lot of conditions. Matter of fact, I feel that there's an inclination from some of my colleagues and staff to want to remind us that we can't vote no on this project because of health reasons. And while that is true, we have immense authority and latitude to make all kinds of decisions. And frankly, we wouldn't need to deny this project because of health reasons. If we so chose to, we can cite all kinds of things in our general plan. Mind you, we can also approve this project. But I just want to say that when we're trying to steer a narrative of we're high, and we can't do anything, and we must move forward with certain projects, because like our arms are twisted and we can't decide because we might get sued or we might be doing something illegal, that's simply not true. If we make decisions that are for the people, who can be against us? If the people are for us, who can be against us? That said, I want to state a couple quotes that stood out to me from the presentations, in case my colleagues find any value in them. And it's one where the appellant, Jason Sunberg, a resident of the city of Lemon Grove, very active in our community actually, has a good pulse on public sentiment. He says that there'll be negative financial impacts and neighbors will not be compensated in any way if this project were to be built. That stands out to me as an elected official because, well, we're here to make sure that our constituents and our residents are happy. We don't want them to be negatively impacted. We don't want them to be getting ripped off. So see, we can approve or deny this project based on all kinds of reasons, such as that the community believes it has community impacts that are contrary to the general plan. And it's clauses that actually say that we can vote against projects that do not blend with the overall feel or look of the neighborhood, the surrounding areas. I know these clauses well because as a planning commissioner, I have to cite them. I made decisions on projects just like this. And we had to move forward with either a denial or approval on developments based on whether we could agree that the projects met the certain findings. And sometimes the projects weren't allowed because they just didn't fit with the community. That is a viable reason for not allowing something to be built. It's kind of simple, doesn't need to be a rocket science reason. After all, we are here to support the community and how they're feeling and how they want us as representatives in a democratic society, like a representative democracy, to represent them. So as council members, we have already discussed this project and deliberated at length a few council meetings ago. Thank you to the appellant and AT&T representatives for their time and efforts tonight. So I'll cut to the chase now. There aren't many, if any, of our constituents who are suffering from a lack of cell coverage in our tiny 3-mile city. Very simply put, we have the discretion to approve or deny this project. As pointed out to us tonight, not even the county allows construction of cell phone towers, such as the one being proposed in our neighborhood, near families, children, and homes. The reality is, a home near a radiating cell phone tower isn't attractive. And I can say that more so. I'm a sales professional. And I'll tell you that certain things make certain products undesirable. That's from my professional perspective in sales. Cell phone towers near houses certainly makes it harder for a real estate agent to advertise and sell that house, which means that the person who's trying to sell their property is then being robbed of equity that they could have had to bless their families, to bless themselves, especially after working so hard. So the reality is a home near a radiating cell phone tower isn't attractive, which makes it less marketable and causes it to lose market value. In other words, another cell phone tower in our tiny city, which is already saturated by them, doesn't add value to the lives of the hardworking taxpayers that we profess to represent. Now, I'm pretty sure that we all understand how business works. Matter of fact, I'm fervently pro-business. AT&T wants to erect a cell phone tower to make money. That's good. This is America. And making money is most businesses' prerogative. In the same vein, it's the people's prerogative to ensure developments being proposed near them don't negatively affect them, their property value, and their quality of life. Mr. Sundberg mentioned that we don't see projects like this going up in certain areas. And at our last city council meeting on May 21st, when I deliberated, I said the same. You don't see a myriad of cell phone towers being erected in perhaps more affluent areas because they know that that affects their property values. It's not marketable. It's not attractive. And many wager that it's not safe, whether the federal government wants to admit that or not. That's how people feel. I strongly believe that it's time that we stop letting everybody use our city as a cash cow, and that we rise to the occasion of standing up for our residents, and as resident Jason Sundberg says, siding with them and doing what would make our constituents happy. So, after great consideration of the general plan, the facts and data, using my background as a Lemon Grove Planning Commissioner, my professional background in sales, I find that these cell phone tower projects don't necessarily meet all the findings required for approval. And I'm open to listening to my colleagues as we deliberate here to see if I might be persuaded another way. But so far, based on the facts and data, as we so often refer to up here on the dais, I'm not too sure that this project meets all the findings that we have to find in order to grant it approval to move forward. Thank you.
Councilmember Gastel.
Thank you. You know, we go into things like this knowing that there's no such thing as a perfect project, and there's no way to satisfy everybody with the project. We also should go into this with a really clear concept of what the role of the city council is. And it's true that we have a fair amount of authority, but it's also true that there are significant limits on that authority. And in particular, we have to be very clear about the reasons if we take an action. The reasons we give make a huge difference. For me, the most important factor is that the Planning Commission has in fact thoroughly discussed this. They've done their job. We sent it back. They did their job again. I honestly, well, I wasn't completely sure that we did a smart move. Remember when we sent it back to the Planning Commission? Some people said, oh, George, that's a waste of time. Well, they moved it 60 feet. So I think probably it was good to give them another crack at it, give them another chance to consider various factors and come up with possibly change the designs, or in this case, change the location. I feel a little bit vindicated that they moved it 60 feet. Now, it's sounding like they moved it in the wrong direction or not the way people wanted, but here's the thing that's uppermost in my mind. We have a planning commission that has put a lot of time into this. This has been on the docket for a long time. And there's 5 people on that planning commission that signed up for planning commission specifically because we wanted an independent body of ordinary Lemon Grove citizens to look at projects like this. They've done their job. They not only did their job, they did their job twice. And our staff looks out for us. They work for us. They work for the community. They asked the questions. They did the research. They did look at possibly 9 sites. I remember hearing about some of those sites. I remember discussing the merits of some of those sites at a previous council meeting. And I'm pretty sure for every minute I've spent on this, the planning commission members have probably spent 3 or 4 minutes. They've spent more time on this than we have. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there are 5 of them able to make rulings on this. Yeah, there's 5 of them. There's 3 of us, okay? The bare minimum. The planning commission has done its job. This city had a planning commission, then we didn't. Then we brought it back during the time I was out of office. The council brought the planning commission back, and the reason given was because the planning commission does important work that the council doesn't have time to do. Do you think that's uppermost on my mind? Yes, it is. The planning commission is doing work that the council does in fact often do because that's appealed. But in general, as long as the planning commission is doing its work, as long as they are listening, and yes, they are listening. Okay, they don't agree with everybody, but let's keep in mind, it's impossible to agree with everybody. They do in fact listen. They're 5 wonderful people. I know I'm biased, I had a role in appointing them. But they're 5 wonderful people, they did in fact do their job. I'm not gonna do their job again for them. And I'm not inclined, colleagues might disagree, I'm not inclined to send it back to them. We already sent it back to them to let them do their job twice. They moved at 60 feet, and I hope that was a good move. I think that was in response to genuine concerns. So, let me just take a look at my notes, see if there's anything I wanted to add. I think one thing that's been reiterated that I'm gonna strongly agree with, this city's overdue for a revision of the general plan. I think our general plan was put together shortly after I moved here 30 years ago. I remember distinctly that I was a relatively new resident to the community when we worked on the general plan. So that would have been close to 30 years ago. It's been a while. And so I want to second and third that move that we do need to revise our general plan. I also want to emphasize there's a lot of things in the general plan where it says we promote things. We want to see alternatives. In many ways, the general plan is saying these are the optimum things that we're looking for. Co-location, for example, would be an optimum. But I think at the same time, we have to recognize we don't always get the optimum, okay? We don't always get the optimum, but we get something that's reasonable. We get something that's reasonable after 5 people on the commission put an incredible amount of time into it, after our staff did their diligence and their research. And I also want to say that if there's one weakness in this process, I don't think we've heard enough from the people that use FirstNet, and I was really interested to hear that the county sheriff, for example, uses FirstNet. We in fact contract with the county sheriff. It's also relevant that the city of San Diego uses FirstNet, since this tower would in fact, a lot of the area to benefit would in fact be city of San Diego. It's not that far from College Grove. Not that it's our job to help them, but it's always good to know that there are agencies out there that help us, agencies that serve us, that use FirstNet. Okay, and the project is designed to serve FirstNet. Is it perfect? No. Is it going to satisfy everybody? No. But have they done their due diligence? Yes. Is there in fact a need for improving cell service? Yes. Are there in fact people benefiting? Yes. We've heard from residents. There's one in the folder, as well as the one that the representative mentioned. We've heard from residents that see benefits. I'll grant that we've heard from residents that don't want it too, but I really have to reject the idea that approving a project is not siding with the residents. It is in fact siding with the need for improved cell service and the fact that we have, as a council, we have a specific responsibility. We can't outright reject projects just because we don't like cell towers or we don't like 5G. There has to be specific reasons, and I have to say that the Planning Commission has done its job in making sure that this is the best possible project that it can be, and that it does in fact serve a recognized community need. Far from perfect, not going to please everybody, but the fact is, we don't need to take action on this. The Planning Commission has already done the action. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. And I'll say this. I actually served as a planning commissioner for nearly 6 years and had the opportunity to learn how cities are planned and why there are certain laws in place. But I also adopted the ethic of operating off of data and facts, removing my personal feelings, because I'm human too. I have personal feelings, but removing those personal feelings away from government processes And government is slow on purpose. It was set up and designed that way. And there are laws and guidelines and standard operating procedures that we must follow legally. And often that can conflict with your personal ideas or perhaps what you think could be good for the community. It often conflicts with that. But when you take the oath of office, you take the oath of office to follow the guidelines and the rules that have been established. Now, I'm going to say this, serving 6 years, I never had a staff member call me and tell me to vote a certain way or to tell me what to do. That has never happened in my time. And if I was interested in finding out more information about a project, staff was there to answer my questions based on the data, based on the facts, and not based on any relationship or perceived relationship. And I want to make that clear. Now, from what I know about this project, there are best management practices that are in place. And the Planning Commission looked at this project 2 times and provided their approval. And the ultimate goal is to provide better coverage for community members right here in Lemon Grove. What is proposed to be installed will not help someone in an affluent neighborhood. It could be installed to help our neighbors. And that's what it's all about. It's not based on money. It's not based on relationships. It's based on improving connectivity, not only for residents, but also for those who respond when we, the residents, are having a crisis. And by all means, we need to make sure that those who are responding when we personally have a crisis, that they're able to connect and then connect with us, because it can make a difference between us living to see the next day or us breathing our last breath. I heard concerns about the height and the location. Well, personally, I live here in Lemon Grove. I hope you all know that. But there is a cell phone tower that is the same height with the same type of foliage, less than 500 feet from my house. And it's located on a church property. And so if you think that cell phone towers are just impacting one group, no, they're actually, all over, and there's different types, but just so happens that there's one less than 500 feet from my house. Our planning commissioners, they really took time out to develop some findings. And those findings were made, and validated 2 times, which was the use is compatible with the neighborhood or the community. That's 1. The use is not detrimental to the health, safety, convenience, or general welfare of a person residing or working in the vicinity. The use complies with performance standards according to section 17.24.080, and the use is consistent with the provisions of the particular zoning district and with policies and standards of the general plan.
And I see the concerns, and I see, and I've heard the appeal, and I just haven't heard anything that conflicts with the findings of the planning commissioners. There's no there there. And so, in this moment, I am compelled to affirm the project and deny the appeal. I am gonna do one more round for council deliberations. I'll turn it over to Councilmember LeBaron.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question at this point would be for the city attorney. I've listened to what you and Councilmember Gastel have said. And it seems we've all put some consideration into this. Kristen Steinke, what would happen if we didn't come to a 3-0 vote on this tonight?
Because there are only 3 of you, any decision on the matter, whether to deny the appeal or grant the appeal, has to be a unanimous vote. So 3 have to vote either in favor or opposed. If you cannot reach a unanimous vote, the planning commission's decision will stand.
Okay. So as it stands, the planning commission has said yes to this project. The cell phone tower, they said yes, build it, construct it, have it be. So, after hearing the 3 of us talk, I stated how I felt. You stated how you felt, George. Rockwell, I stated how you felt. Well, this is where we're gonna deliberate, guys. Okay, we gotta talk amongst each other, cause what I'm hearing, it doesn't sound like we're on the same page. No? I was listening, in case you could, like I said, I'm open to being persuaded, right? That's the purpose of us coming to these meetings, is why we agendize things, so we can openly discuss them in front of the public, hear from all parties involved, and then, and only then, come to decision. State our opinions, right? After we've listened to everybody, done things fairly. And even after hearing that, however, I have not been persuaded by you 2. And I'm not inclined to vote yes on the cell phone tower. So now, I would suggest, because if we were to just move forward with that, it would be an impasse. It'd be, 2-1. I think, I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. There might be 2 yeses for the cell phone tower, might be 1 no for the cell phone tower. Do we, if that's kind of accurate, do we want to discuss, or really quickly, George, do we perhaps, are you 2 open to any conditions on the project? I have to throw it out there.
Okay, yeah, my inclination right now is to not take action because I feel the planning commission has done its job and done it well. I'm not gonna say I'm against conditions because I think there might be conditions that we'd agree on to add. I was thinking we might want a condition that the storm drains be investigated and regularly maintained, but it sounds like staff already addressed that. So I'm not gonna suggest that as a condition, but I just give that as an example of the kind of condition that would be in the range of things that we could, that I think would be reasonable to consider. So I'm gonna say I'm not against conditions, but I can't think of any that I wanna support right now, but I think maybe it wouldn't hurt to consider if we wanna put any conditions on it.
How do you feel, Madam Mayor? What are your thoughts?
I would like to hear the conditions that you would like to propose. Thank you.
Okay, well, I open this up to the three of us, let's say, throwing it out there. Would it be, do you two think it's possible that we would put a condition on it not being a tree and it being a structure or part of the building, as Jason Sundberg suggested and showed us pictures of? Just throwing this out here, because at this point, I'm trying to see if there's anything. I mean, I don't want to be super stuck. Let's exhaust all avenues. I mean, and that's not to say that I'll even, after talking about this, I'm gonna agree to these conditions. I mean, but let's exhaust stuff, I think, first. So what do you think about suggestion that it not be a tree, Madam Mayor?
I will say this, I trust our planning commission. I'm sure that our planning commission vetted all ideas along with staff, and I support their findings, and, I wanna make sure that we honor and respect their decision. We sent it back once already, and it went through another thorough review. That was the opportune time to come up with a different design, and to make more modifications. There were 2 modifications, that were approved by the planning commission, which was the relocation, of the tower, the antenna 60 feet south, and native pest control methods. Those were the 2 changes. And I am confident in our planning commission, to have made good, sound decisions. So, and the findings have been outlined, they were provided to us, and those findings were on a slide for us to see. And when I think about the appeal that is in place, the appeal does not counter any of the findings of the planning commission. And so, while we deliberate, I will say this, and we can continue to have this discussion, but what I will do is I will go ahead and put a motion on the table, as we continue to have these discussions, for consideration, and turn this back over to my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I'd like to say, okay. I'd like to say that yes, the planning commission is not us. They are an appointed body that is, if we had to rank things, they're below us. We are not appointed by any, we're elected by the people, so we're higher on the totem pole. We're actually the last stopping place here in this city. We're the final say, and we do act in a quasi-judicial fashion. And projects like this come to their end here with us. Their other alternatives or recourse are to sue us and then take it to the courts. In any event, I mentioned that to say that we are extremely responsible to our constituents to have a say and to take a position on things. Referring to a planning commission body that is not beholden to the voters, was not chosen by the voters, and is actually in the rank of things below us, a little bit elementary. We are higher on the totem pole, so we should be able to stand up and have an opinion, actually. And all that said, I want to be very respectful of the public's time. If we can't come to a consensus, this is just going to revert to the planning commission's decision, which is that the cell phone tower will exist. Based on what you said, Madam Mayor, and more so maybe what you said, Madam Mayor, it does not seem that me sitting here and making suggestions to try to consensus build is going to be fruitful, and I don't intend on wasting the public's time. So with that, I'm gonna say that my inclination, my instinct, after considering everything, would be to vote no on this project. It's evident from what you're saying, Madam Mayor, that you would be voting yes on the project, and so would you, Mr. Gastel. So I second the motion to close this public hearing, to go to a vote, so that the public is just made aware how we're choosing to prioritize things sooner than later.
We have already closed the public hearing, and we took a vote on the public hearing. Right now, we are deliberating regarding this particular project. I did put a motion on the floor, and so it is a motion to actually vote on this project.
Correct.
And I want to make sure that all of that is notated on the record. And I'll turn it over to Councilmember Gastel to see if you have comments. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm thinking perhaps I should second the motion, but before I do that, I have a question, and our city attorney might help with this. I'm under the impression that we need a motion to approve it. If we don't take action, then we are in fact sticking with the decision of the planning commission. Is there a benefit to a motion, or is it something that, what's the impact of doing a motion?
Well, that's up to you, but you can take no action. Effectively, if you do make a motion to, say, deny the appeal, and the vote is 2-1, it fails. If you make a motion to grant the appeal and you get a 2-1 vote, it fails. So the result is the same, which is there is no action.
You know what, I'm inclined to not second the motion, and I say that with all the respect for our mayor, and the diligence that she's put into this, and the reason I'm not gonna second the motion is because I think we would fail, and I tell my students it's better to drop the class than to fail. All seriousness aside, I think we don't need a motion, and I'd be happy just to say that we're not taking action.
I can actually retract my motion.
Okay, so there's no motion.
I'd like to make a motion to uphold Jason Sundberg's appeal of this project.
Is there a second? The motion fails.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. We will take a brief break to allow the council members to return to our chamber here. So we'll take about a 5-minute break, and then we will resume our meeting. Thank you.
Something
And they inspect, that's up there. Once you pulled her first, well, the mayor pulled her first, for her motion, sorry. Then LeBaron is motion. It's been noticed. There's no action.
So everything.
To not take it, yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing. Learn something every time, something one of these.
Members were outside, and they stopped and asked, and they saw me moving around, I'm like, something probably happened.
Yeah.
After all that.
You know how that goes.
Yeah, after all that, I'm like, still have to sneeze and I missed it.
I know, that'll teach you.
Yes, yes, by the time we got to it, it was like, oh God, I do this for 10 o'clock, so I just in time. I know, so it was here's basically a vote in order to like change and then so it's like the process is on each. So instead of having like two ones all on the phone, yeah, there's some stuff.
Thank you. Good to see you. Welcome.
I wanted to put this sign on the yard house.
Yeah, maybe they don't have to reach out. He lives near me. It was this year. Like they did. Like they
Steve put his right to center, something like that. But I was like, I don't know whose problem it is. You know, when I make the turn, because I know.
To a point. That's what. Yeah.
But I was trying to go on the side to me as a person, but I knew it switched to really knows what to do. I said, so I made it area. I said,
yeah, it's 70.
Yeah. Like maybe one sign.
Yeah, we'll go with
yeah.
I talked to yeah, they have require just trust us. We did an alternative, but they provide at least 3 alternative sites or alternate states.
Yeah, we're doing one.
Yes, we're going to.
Yeah, I have it on my Facebook, my Instagram. You put your phone number and text it. Maybe even better. Yeah, because you gotta do it individually, each of us, 'cause, yeah, but it makes it. Yeah, right. But perfect, okay, I'll drop off the sign and I'll do this right now. Thank you.
No, there's an hour.
I'm hoping these two last things
So they
My name is Kenneth. I live on Watergate. Well, we wanted to have some speech. Gates, Shaw, the residents meeting. Only one reason. Yeah, this morning. But I couldn't have anybody, because we don't get anybody in. I'm the have a problem with They give you one thing they give you projects next to me. Oh, yes.
I'm done eating my popcorn. I had to brush my teeth, but now I'm hungry again. Oh no, I'm so sorry.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Oh, yeah, you like it.
Yeah, like, it's like you can have a photo
Yeah, not cool. I don't want that. Yeah, I don't know. My phone, I cover the meetings for freelance for county council. I can't upload my phone. But, I can try to nudge them a little bit. Are you covering East
We will now begin the meeting, and we are starting with item number 3, which is the award of contract number 2024-12 for the fiscal year 2023-24 Community Development Block Grant CDBG, Corona Street, Davison Avenue, and Nida Place street improvements projects to Eagle Paving Company Incorporated, DBA, Toro Engineering. I'll turn this over to Izzy Murguia, Public Works Director, to present the staff report.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. The item before you this evening, as the Mayor had referenced, is the recommendation to award a contract to Eagle Paving for the street rehabilitation of Corona Street, Davidson Avenue, and Nida Place. Before we delve into these street projects, I briefly want to go over the Community Development Block Grant Program. So next slide, please. The CDBG program is a federally funded program. It's funded by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And the purpose of the CDBG program is to provide funds for community development projects and affordable housing activities benefiting low to moderate income households and persons with special needs. The objectives of the program, again, is to provide a benefit to low and moderate income persons, prevent or eliminate slums, and meet the needs of a particular agency. And so the city has, over the past several years, used CDBG funding for street rehabilitation, thus being the need for Lemon Grove. In order for an agency to be, or eligible activities, excuse me, for such a project include acquisition of property, improvements of public facilities, the provision of public services, and economic development activities. Next slide, please. The CDBG program for fiscal year 23-24 includes an allocation of $121,395. Again, that the City Council on November 1st, 2022 approved to go towards a street maintenance project. And at that time, at that council meeting, staff presented various alternatives with the recommendation of including these three streets as one single project. Again, that is Corona Street from Central Avenue to Roosevelt, Nida Place from Palm Street to the end of the cul-de-sac, and Davidson Avenue from Main Street to Buena Vista. At that time, when staff came before the City Council with its recommendation, it based its recommendation on certain criteria. And that criteria includes, first and foremost, is the selected site within an eligible census tract. So in order for a project to be completed, it has to qualify within the low to moderate income requirements. And so those three streets fell within that criteria. Then staff looks at budget. So we are looking at, can we undertake a project within the allocated funds that are provided. At that time, these three streets, the cost estimates for these three streets was within the allocation. Next, we looked at connectivity. We looked at fixing whole blocks as opposed to streets that are mid-blocks. Next, we looked at maximizing the number of residences served. And again, in our analysis on the various alternative streets, we looked at Nida Place, Corona Street, Davidson as a whole had a maximum number of residences compared to the other alternative streets. And then we also looked at whether or not the proposed site is close to a city park, facilities or schools. And then lastly, are they close to, or do they have access to a commercial corridor? Next slide, please. So here's a map of, just an aerial map of the the selected streets. Again, so we have Corona Street up to the left-hand corner, Davidson down towards the center middle, and Nida Place right.
I think it's just too little.
Next slide, please. So again, as I mentioned, the council approved the selection of these 3 streets on November 1st. And the county had approved, it takes about a year to get all the agreements in place with the county. So the county serves as the administering agency for the city in carrying out this project. So it took about a year to get the contracts approved through the county and HUD. But this slide essentially summarizes the city advertised the project on August 17th, and bids were due on September 17th. We received 5 bids. The lowest bid being Eagle Paving Company at $212,000, $100. Quality Construction and Engineering, United Paving Company, TC Construction Company, and lastly, Prestige Paving Company. As the staff report indicates, we reviewed the bids submitted. Eagle Paving did submit the lowest responsive and responsible bid, and so we are recommending an award to Eagle Paving. Next slide summarizes the detail on the work that will be conducted on the various streets. So first off, Corona Street, again from Central Avenue to Roosevelt Avenue. The area in blue, it's hard to see, but the area in blue, which is essentially the kind of the first half closer to Central Avenue, is a 2-inch mill overlay. And then the area to the south, indicated in red, it is a full reconstruction of this street. In addition to the mill and overlay and the reconstruction, the street will be getting one 88 curb ramp. Next slide, please. The next proposed street is Davidson Avenue from Main Street to Buena Vista. The area closest to Main Street on the right-hand side is indicated in red. That is a full reconstruction of that segment of the street. The area in blue is, that is scheduled to be a 2-inch mill and overlay, followed by the areas in yellow, which are deep dig out areas that will correspond with the 2-inch mill and overlay. Similarly, in addition to the mill and overlay, this street will also get renewed striping. So stop limit signs. When this project was first proposed, I think one of the main selling points of this project is we have Connect Main Street currently being undertaken as part of this segment, and one of the recommendations is it would tie the essentially, I guess, for lack of better words, complete the connect. It's separate from Connect Main Street, obviously, but it would add value to that project with a neighboring street being fully repaved. Next slide. The last street as part of this project is Ida Place. Ida Place will be seeing a 2-inch mill and overlay along with renewed striping and a couple of deep dig outs as well. Next slide, please. With that, that sums up the overview of what this project consists of. Again, we are looking for, staff's looking for a motion to have this project awarded to Eagle Paving Company for the construction of Corona Street, Davidson Avenue, and Ida Place. For an amount of $212,100, and authorizing the city manager to execute any necessary documents. That concludes staff's presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you so very much. I'll check with our city clerk to see if we have any speaker slips for this item. And we do not have any speaker slips at this time, so I will do 2 rounds of questions from council members, starting with Council Member Snow.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Izzy. One of the questions that I had was on it's on page 35 of it's the FY 2023-2024 SEBG program page, and it lists the different factors that were taken into account. Among the criteria, do they also take into account the quality of the road? Is that a factor that was also considered?
Thanks for bringing that point up. With our CDBG funding, we primarily look at streets that are below the 25 PCI mark. So these 3 streets are below that 25 PCI mark. But yes.
I think that's one of the important points to be able to understand, is that we're really trying to tackle these toughest roads first. And that's one of the biggest factors in determining this. When we originally approved this, it's my understanding that we approved it for an allocation of 121,000 and change, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and so now we're at 212,000. That's a pretty steep increase in the original allocated amount. Where are those extra funds coming from?
So the extra funds are coming from gas tax and Transnet, so $45,352. I think it's split pretty much evenly. Is coming from gas tax and Transnet to fund the delta of the project. So when a couple things. So when the streets were first brought forward for recommendation was November 2022. The bidding environment was different. In addition, when we put our specs together, we looked at core samples of the streets, and 2 of the streets require full reconstruction. And so that adds cost to the project, which that information may not have been available in November of 2022.
Councilmember LeBaron.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's very exciting that we're gonna be working on some really bad roads. My question would be, when is this work gonna be completed?
So, yeah, if you're looking for a hard date, don't have that for you. We need to get the schedule from Eagle Paving. So after tonight, we will route the contract to Eagle Paving for signature and award, and then after the contract is scheduled, we issue them an NTP, notice to proceed. So that process usually takes about 2 weeks to get the contract routed, the insurance obtained. Once we issue them the notice to proceed, say for example, 3 weeks from now, we are essentially giving them the green light to start, but we don't know what other projects they may have in mind. So they need to get us on the schedule. I don't have that date for you.
Okay, hold on, so we're. It's October 1st, November 1st, December 1st, so we got 3 months left.
And this year, like I said, this is super exciting.
People, listen, I've been going door to door a lot recently, and people overwhelmingly are telling me that their top concerns are roads. So this is extremely exciting. I'm so excited, and I get to tell people that a couple more roads, some of the bad ones, are getting fixed. That's good. At the same time, a lot of people say that they've heard that before, right? And, they're not necessarily gonna trust that just at face value. I mean, I don't trust this at face value either, which is why I'm kind of asking, well, when do you think these streets will be done? Is it fair to say they'll be done within 6 months? Is that fair to say?
Fair to say, yes.
Perfect, so when we drive around town, there'll be red cones, hopefully a sign that says your money put to work, and, hopefully some good news. Thank you. Councilmember Gaston?
I'm thinking these community development block grants come about every 3 years, is that right?
It's every year.
It's every year?
Every year, yes.
Okay. Well, this one we approved in 2022. And $212,000 is, compared to the other, it's quite a huge gap. Do we have any idea, I think $212,000 is probably on the low end of what's normal, for paving. Do we have any idea why there's such the variation in bid amounts is pretty huge. Why is there so much variation?
I can't say for specifically, the engineer's estimate for the project is $300,000. So yes, the low bid was significantly below the engineer's estimate. That being said, Eagle Paving Company is a responsible contractor. We've done business with them. We're satisfied with the work that they do and feel like we don't have any concerns with their bid amount.
Yeah, right. Maybe prestige, sometimes when the bid's really high, I suspect they didn't actually want to do it. But I'm wondering if you had any, because that's quite a range, it's more range than we usually see. Yeah, I don't have any other, I used to live very close to Corona. I'm very familiar with that street. But I don't have any more questions.
Before I move on to Mayor Pro Tem Mendoza, I'll turn it over to our, city manager.
Yes, Councilmember Gaston, I wanted to answer the 3-year question. Previously, we were able to accumulate 3 years of CDBG, and we'd come to you with a project that we could pay fully with CDBG. Several years ago, the county changed their guidelines. Although it's allowed by HUD to administer CDBG, the county has decided not to do that anymore and not allow the jurisdictions in which they allocate CDBG monies to accumulate them over a 3-year period. So that's why we're having to look at year-to-year projects. I think that's the change, because your memory is correct.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Mayor Pro Tem Mendoza?
So my question was gonna be about the criteria, so thank you for setting that out for us verbally. Because November 22 was a little while ago, and I don't remember, what we voted on at that time, so I appreciate setting that out and reminding us. And then I just wanted to say, in the past, as far as the timeline, I know the previous CDBG projects were completed. They seem to complete those fairly quickly. So I'm certain that will happen in this case. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. I do not have any particular questions at this time, but we'll make some comments in the next round, starting with Allison Snow, Councilmember Snow.
On some of these streets, you indicated that there were gonna be substantial dig outs. Did the dig outs trigger any ADA compliance requirements? And did those contribute to some of the higher costs that we're seeing in the original estimated $121,000?
Yes, thank you for that question. So whenever you rehabilitate a street, such a mill and overlay, you trigger ADA if there is existing sidewalk or ADA ramps. But so to answer your specific question, this project, it includes ADA ramps, and so that also increases the cost of the project. On average, an ADA ramp is about $8,000.
And then just to build off of what George had asked before, you indicated this was the lowest responsible bid. What factors did you consider in determining the responsibility of the bid?
So for responsibility, we look at whether or not the contractor is barred from state of California. SAM is the government website for the federal level. And so we look there. We look at their bonding capacity, and we look at previous work history. So contractors are required to submit essentially a kind of reference list of history of completed projects from other agencies, among other things. That's what we look for.
And so, thank you. So just for my comments on this, I'm very excited, as many people are, to see more streets being repaired in our community. I think I'm grateful that Eagle Paving came in at this amount. We didn't have to even pay more. Prestige is about $164,000 more than Eagle Paving. So I think that we were able to save money there, even though some of the costs increased from what we had originally anticipated and approved back in November of 2022. But I think all of us wish our prices were still the same as they were back in November of 2022. So I think this looks good, and I look forward to seeing the streets getting repaired. Thank you.
Councilmember LeBaron.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm excited. Just with me, the big thing is always accountability, because we can say that we're doing all kinds of stuff, and then if it never comes to fruition, or it takes an exorbitant amount of time to come to fruition, then that's also not good. I hope that the price, right, so I always try to get ETAs on stuff. That is how people can keep us accountable, right? Tell them you're gonna do something, probably have a deadline in mind so that people can hold us accountable. That's something that we should look forward to, right? Being held accountable, because it pushes us as a city leadership to do better for our constituents. I hope that when you check with their work schedule, that they're not booked out for a whole year, and I hope that they can get to it within the 6 months. You said that they might be able to get to it. Thanks, that's it.
Councilmember Estel.
I don't have any more questions.
Mayor Pro Tem Mendoza.
I have no questions. I'd like to, move approval. The resolution awarding a contract for the Community Development Block Grant fiscal year 2023-24, Glen Street, Davidson Avenue, and Nida Place Street Improvement Project to Eagle Paving Company, DBA Toro Engineering.
We have a motion and a second, and I will go ahead and make my comments about this work. And I'll say that I'm really pleased and happy to see this project move forward. And the mere fact that the work is anticipated to be completed in 6 months. Is really great news to hear. A long time coming as well. And the one thing that I will say is, I know that construction, although it's temporary, it can be a little challenging for people to navigate. But as these projects move forward, I'm just asking our community members to be mindful and patient as the work rolls out and the work is completed. And that as a city, we make a sincere commitment to notifying community as these projects roll out. Making sure that there's temporary signage in place, noting that these projects are going to be commissioned, and letting residents know what the construction schedule looks like. So, in advance, I will say thank you, community members, for your patience. And the goal is to make sure that these streets will be fixed and that we'll have smoother roads in Lemon Grove. Those are my comments. We do have a motion and a second. I will turn it over to our city clerk to call the roll.
The motion was made by Mayor Pro Tem Mendoza with a second by Councilmember LeBaron to approve staff's recommendation. I will now conduct the roll to call on the record. Councilmember Gastiel.
Aye.
Councilmember Castillo? Sorry, I turned on the mic.
Oh, aye.
Councilmember Snow?
Aye.
Councilmember LeBaron?
Councilmember LeBaron? Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Mendoza?
Aye.
Mayor Vasquez?
Aye.
Motion carries on a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. We're moving on to item number 4, which is the installation of an all-way stop at Golden Avenue, School Lane, and Central Avenue, School Lane intersections. I'll turn this over to Izzy Margia, our Public Works Director, to present the staff report.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. As you referenced the item before you this evening, it's a recommendation to install an all-way stop at Golden Avenue, School Lane, and Central Avenue, School Lane. This item is a follow-up to requests that the city received relating to concerns over safety at various intersections around the city, including Central Avenue and School Lane, Golden Avenue and School Lane, Central Avenue and Olive Street, Madera Street, and Sonoma Lane, and lastly, Lansing Drive and DuPont Drive. To address these concerns, an all-way stop analysis was approved at the previous mentioned locations. Traffic counts were conducted over a 2-day period during the school year. I believe the dates were May 8th and May 9th. When the city undertakes an all-way stop analysis, the city refers to the city's all-way stop policy, which was adopted in 2005. This policy, you can stay at, sorry, you can go back to the slide. Yeah, stay here. This policy is based on national and state guidelines set forth in the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. The policy uses a point system to justify the use of an all-way stop. Next slide, please. The minimum number of points needed for justifying an all-way stop is 45 points out of a total possible 100. There are an additional 10 points, bonus points that are allocated to a specific intersection if they meet additional criteria. This slide here, I know it's a little difficult to read, but the various criteria that that's included in the warrant analysis and what the traffic engineers look at is accident data. So 5 points is allocated for each accident that could have been prevented should there have been a all-control stop at that location during any 12-month period prior to the evaluation. The policy also looks at unusual conditions. So various amounts of points are assigned for specific features, such as whether the intersection is close to schools, parks with playgrounds, I should say, bus drop-offs, site distance issues, roadway grades, and speeds. So there's a maximum of 21 points allocated for that criteria. The next one is pedestrian volume warrants, and this is out of a maximum amount of 20, so points are assigned based on large numbers of pedestrians crossing the uncontrolled street during the busiest hour of an average day. Again, an example of that would be if you're taking School Lane and Central Avenue as an example, people crossing from School Lane onto from the library, say for example, over to Firefighters Park. There's no stop sign there, so you know that's an uncontrolled stop. The fourth criteria is traffic volume, and so this looks at the magnitude of vehicle volumes entering the intersection during the busiest 8 hours of an average day. And the 24 points are allocated here. And then the fifth criteria is traffic volume difference. So this looks at the ratio of the amount of vehicle volume between the two streets. So for it to qualify, you know, you want the volumes to be equal to maximize the number of points. Next slide, please. So this is a summary of the findings. So of the 5 locations, Central Avenue and School Lane received 52 points of the analysis. And in the duration of the presentation, we'll look at each intersection a little bit more closely. And so a recommendation for an all-way stop is recommended for Central Avenue and School Lane. Golden Avenue and School Lane received 46 points, so it's also eligible for a all-way stop. Madera Street, Sonoma Lane received 35 points, so a all-way stop is not recommended there. Central Avenue and Olive Street received 35 points as well, again falling short of the required 45 points. And Lansing Drive and DuPont Drive received 2 points, making it ineligible, or not, staff not recommending an all-way stop at that location. Next slide, please. So delving into each intersection a little bit more closely to be able to describe the reasons why an all-way stop is recommended here. Central Avenue and School Lane. Central Avenue is a 2-lane class 3 collector with a posted speed limit of 30 miles an hour. School Lane is a 2-lane residential local collector with a speed limit of 25. Both streets have an average daily count of 2,500. The 85th percentile speeds for both streets is approximately 27 miles per hour on School Lane, and then approximately 23 miles per hour on Central. This intersection didn't have any sight distance issues, again, which is one of the components of the criteria. If there are sight distance issues, that specific intersection is likely to receive a higher points. The intersection also received high points with regards to unusual conditions, and this is mostly specifically related to having the elementary school adjacent to the intersection. And so you see that in the pedestrian volume points. So it received 20 out of 20 points on the pedestrian volume. Think of any other unusual circumstances here. If council approves the recommendation, we would install an all-way stop at School Lane in Central. We would remove the striping, the crossing striping that exists there, and put the limit line, and we would install another limit line on the south side of School Lane, right by the library. Next slide, please. Moving on to our second location, Golden Avenue and School Lane. Again, this location met the warrants. Just things to highlight. On the accident warrant category, there was no accident information over a 3-year period, so it didn't receive any points there. Again, it did receive a high amount of unusual condition criteria, again, meaning it's right adjacent to a school, so it did receive some points there, along with the pedestrian volume. Again, being adjacent to a school, you're going to get those pedestrian counts, and so it did receive 20 out of 20. The traffic volume, it received 2 points, and essentially there is a calculation that is used on the traffic volume, and it didn't receive as many points in that category, but overall the intersection did meet warrants for a stop sign. Again, the traffic volume, just to go back on that, it looks at the 85th percentile of speeds. So both at these locations, the speeds are less than, or within the 85th percentile. So for example, you get some points if you're 10 miles an hour over the 85th percentile. So the speeds are acceptable at both these locations, and so that's why it's scored low in that category. Next slide, please. Now, Madera Street and Sonoma Lane. Madera Street and Sonoma Lane, this location received 35 points, 10 shy of the recommended limit. Madera Street is a 2-lane Class 2 collector with a posted speed limit of 35 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour with the school zone. Sonoma Lane is a 2-lane residential local collector. It currently has one controlled stop intersection, and that's on the Sonoma Lane leg of the intersection. The average daily traffic for these two areas is 4,100 for Madera Street, so pretty high, and 400 for Sonoma Lane. So again, that just signifies that it's mostly residential going in and out of that street. The intersection here requires a sight distance of 292 feet for and 315 feet on the Sonoma Lane side of the intersection. And the site distance here at this location are well within the limits, and so for the unusual warrant, essentially this intersection meets site distance issues, so there are no site distance issues. Traffic volume difference, again, it's receiving really low amounts here. Again, for an intersection to be optimal, you want the average daily count on both streets to be equal, and Madera Street far exceeds Sonoma Lane. I can't do the math right at this moment, but by 10. Accident warrant information, again, for this location, there was no accident data information for the past 3 years, and so it didn't receive any points there either. And one caveat to make is there not only has to be an accident at a street to be taken into consideration, but we have to consider whether or not the accident could have been prevented if there were a stop sign. So just because there's an accident there, that doesn't mean you're gonna get points. It's based off of whether or not it would have been prevented if there was a stop sign at that location. And then, so that's kind of the major highlights for this section. Next slide, please. Before I move on, with Madera Street and Sonoma Lane, the recommendations, even though it didn't meet the stop sign warrant, there was a recommendation to look at other traffic calming measures, and so we can discuss that a little further. But Central Avenue and Olive Street, this intersection received 35 overall points. Next slide, please. Accident data information, it did receive nominal points here. There was one accident over a 3-year period. Unusual condition warrants, again, it's scored really low here. There's nothing unique about the intersection. Interestingly, it's close by a park that the policy looks at. Parks that have playground equipment is how the policy is written. So it received a 1 point here. Pedestrian volume is pretty low, 4 out of 20. And then on the traffic volume, it did score really high in this section. The average daily count for Central Avenue is about 4,100 average daily count. And I'm sorry, it's 5,700 for Central Avenue, and then 2,600 for Olive Street. So pretty high average daily count. And then lastly, with regards to the bonus points, none of the streets here receive the bonus points. There are certain criteria that the area has to meet, such as being 600 feet away from a signalized intersection, which at this location there was not. Despite it not meeting all-way stop warrant, there is a recommendation to install a red curb on the north side of Central Avenue. So I think there's a complex there. And then on the north side of Central Avenue, but east of Olive Street, so along the church and the garden, thank you. to address site distance issues at this location. And so staff agrees with that recommendation. Next slide, please. Last but not least, Lansing Drive and DuPont. So this location received the least amount of points. Again, accident data, there was no accident data for a 3-year period when the evaluation first started. And again, just because there's an accident, you have to look at whether or not always stop would have prevented it. So didn't receive any points there. Unusual conditions didn't meet any of those warrants. The grade issues, there's no grade issues. Site distances are well provided here. It's not nearby within the respective measurement distances in the policy from a school or park. So you don't get any points in that regard. Pedestrian volume is really low here. In fact, it didn't get any points in that category. And then the traffic volume. Traffic volume for this intersection, there is an average daily count of 180 on DuPont to the north and 120 to the south. And for Lansing Drive, the average daily count is about 2,800. So there's a significant discrepancy between those two directions and locations. And so it ranked low in that respect. And that pretty much sums up the highlights of the warrant analysis for these locations. Next slide, please. So given these 5 analyses, staff is recommending that the council approve a resolution approving the installation of an all-way stop at Golden Avenue and School Lane and at Central Avenue and School Lane intersections. Again, we mentioned other traffic calming considerations for the other intersections, and staff will be taking a closer look at those. But at this time, that concludes staff's presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. Before I conclude, I do have Mark Bugard here with me from Rick Engineering. He serves as our traffic engineer, and he did undertake these analysis. So if there are any particular questions as to reasons for this or that, I might defer to Mark to answer those.
Thank you so very much. We do not have any speaker slips at this time, so I'll go ahead and call on the city council members to see if they have questions, starting with council member Snow.
Thank you for the presentation, and I'm glad we were able to get this warrant analysis done. I know a lot of times as when I'm driving around town, I wish people would go slower and be more conscientious while they're driving. And so this is helping us move there. I did have a question about what were the other recommendations for Madera and Sonoma Street for the traffic calming measures? Because on Madera, people get going pretty fast down that street. It's a long stretch of road there. And I was surprised at how low the pedestrian count was, because it's not super close to a school, but it's fairly close to a school, and in an area where children do tend to walk to school in that area. So can you describe a little bit more what the recommendations might be there for traffic calming?
So the overall recommendation was broad, addressed in the memo. Essentially, consider other traffic calming measures, but at staff's disposal would be additional striping, signage. Again, this would require a more capital expense, but narrowing the street. Not that I would propose that here, but like chicanes, things to slow down vehicles. And so staff would need to undertake a further evaluation on what we would recommend. With regards to the pedestrian count, it's crossings at uncontrolled sections. So during the AM and PM peak hour. So you don't see significant crossings across Madera Street. Looks like pedestrians are crossing along Sonoma Lane or staying on the north side of Madera Street. There is a controlled pedestrian crosswalk at the school. It's not a rapid RRV location, but there is a crosswalk here. But we're looking at, the policy looks at crossings at the proposed intersection. So while pedestrians are utilizing that signal device, pedestrian crossing across the street from the school, the count is looking at the proposed intersection itself. Mark, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add.
That's correct. The recommendations, at least from a traffic calming standpoint, is just broad, but the same elements that Izzy had brought up could potentially be implemented in this area. It's a pretty wide street. He's striping to narrow sections. I know that crosswalk at the school is actually a raised crosswalk, so it does slow vehicles down, but there's also radar feedback signs along that stretch. You can installation of those in that section. That's all.
And from a logistical standpoint, do we have to do additional warrant analysis before these additional measures might be taken, traffic calming measures might be taken? Or are we able to just implement them depending on how much money we have? Or?
Yeah, so the striping, that they could be implemented at staff's discretion. We would need a striping plan from Mark on what that striping would look like. But that would simply be, a task order to Rick Engineering to do that.
Councilmember Laverne.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Izzy, for the very long presentation. The short and sweet of it is that we're going to install red stop signs where there's already stops. They're just now going to be signs that are directed above ground. Because right now, those two locations, it's on school lane, so it's by Lemon Grove Middle School and Lemon Grove Academy Elementary, which are two schools that are right next to one another on school lane. There's currently existing white lines where we're gonna erect these red signs that say stop. But now we're actually just gonna put red stop signs. So, thank you. That's the short and sweet of it. In case anybody's not following along, we're gonna put red stop signs to replace white stop signs that are already painted on the ground. Okay, which is great. Question, how much do these reds, or how many red stop signs? So it'll be 3 stop signs at each location? 1, 2.
So it'd be
Okay.
at these locations,
Yeah.
there's currently one stop sign. So for example, on this location, there's not an existing stop sign on school lane. There's
Like a red
there's-
stop sign.
Correct, but even on the marking, the stop signs are on school lane on the north side, but on Golden Avenue, there is no stop sign.
Okay.
And
So
then,
how many red stop signs, sorry,
so 4 total,
4 total?
at each location.
Each little stop. Okay, and then how much does each one of these red stop signs cost? Do you have any knowledge?
$125.
Oh, it's nice, so they're very, very inexpensive. Nice, okay, thank you, so $125 for the stop sign, okay. I'll ask another question on our next. Thank you.
Councilmember Gastel.
You know, I don't think I have a question. I've got a comment when it's comments.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Mendoza.
I have a question about, the bonus points. It said additional points are assigned if streets are classified as collector. But, Central, isn't Central classified as a collector and it's not included in the bonus points in either, or does it have to include all those things? A collector is 600 feet from the nearest controlled intersection, and if it's, and the reason I'm asking this is, I think I'm more concerned about traffic calming on Madeira, but, the Central and Olive Street intersection is right there at the park, and there's a lot of people who I've noticed, because I have a plot in the community garden and I'm here a couple times a week, that there are a lot of people who walk their dogs over to the park, and then we've got the farmer's market, and there are a lot of people who walk to the farmer's market, on a weekly basis. So I am a little concerned about, the Central Avenue, Olive Street. But you also, there you have, it's a one-way stop now. And then there's, an all-way or a two-way stop a block away at Central and Buena Vista, and then you have Signal to the east, a block to the east. I'm talking myself out of it as I talk to you. So I would say, yeah, I'm concerned, I am concerned about traffic calming on Madeira, definitely. But I understand your reasoning after all this explanation about why, putting up an additional stop sign. And I just wanna clarify, I think, Councilmember LeBaron was confused. We're not putting stop signs up where there's already a stop. There is no stop right now. And we're proposing to put a stop sign, there's a Central Avenue and School Lane, there's a stop sign on School Lane, but there's no stop sign, nothing stopping a car on Central at that intersection. And then on Golden Avenue and School Lane, again, there's a stop sign on School Lane, but there is no stop sign on Golden Avenue in either direction. Not in the street, not a sign, you can just drive right through it, and hopefully people slow down, because I think that is required by the DMV, slow down and come to an intersection. But yeah, so in summary, I'm really glad that we're getting these, the two that you're suggesting. But yeah, we really need to look at traffic calming on Madeira Street.
Thank you, and I think what, Mayor Pro Tem Mendoza was saying, that for those two locations, we're going from two stop signs to 4 stop signs. And that pretty much sums it up. So what I want to do here is, because there's very different schools of thought here at the platform, I'll turn it over to staff to clarify exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, so, Test 1, 2. So to clarify, yes, it's going to be a 3-way stop. I said all-way stop, but I think our minds go to 4-way stop. But those 2 streets are T's, and so there will be 3 stops.
Thank you so much for the clarification. I do not have any questions at this time, so I'm just gonna go ahead and do that second round, starting with Councilmember Snow.
So I don't have any additional questions, so I'm just gonna say that I'm glad that we're moving forward on this. I think it'll help, especially around these schools, to make sure that our students are safer, and give all of us safer passage to and from those areas. I do want to pursue the traffic calming measures as well on Madera and Sonoma, and I like the idea of the red curb at the Central and Olive locations.
Councilmember LeBaron.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay, Izzy, so it's $125 per red stop sign. Who are we paying to install the signs? Is it our public works guy? Is it some?
Yeah, so staff would install the stop signs. I do want to caveat that School Lane is on our upcoming annual rehabilitation project. So the recommendation, if the council approves installing the 4-way stop there, is to have that be done as part of that project. Because there's striping going to be involved, so we might as well have the contractor, do the striping. But if the council wants it done tomorrow, next week, staff would do it. We would need to get our traffic signal contractor to remove the rapid flashing beacon on Golden Avenue. There's a pedestrian crosswalk there. And so that rapid flashing beacon would have to be relocated at an additional site, i.e. Madera Street. Because we can't have that there with a stop sign.
Thank you, Izzy. And I'm asking those questions simply to show how inexpensive it is to install something like a red traffic sign, and apparently how easy it is. So when people come to our city council meetings and tell us about notoriously dangerous roads, well, seeing how inexpensive it costs to put up a stop sign, how easily it can be done, I can't reconcile why there's such a reluctance from the council majority to move forward and try to remedy some of our most dangerous roads with something like a stop sign. That said, I'm hearing my colleagues loud and clear when they're talking about Madera Street. Like I said, I've been going door to door recently, and, well, my entire term, actually, I've heard these same things, and this is something that I've brought up before, but now that we are talking about it today, certainly Madera Street is a very, very dangerous road. I walked it just a couple of days ago, and I was flabbergasted with the level of neglect that street is in, being that it's right next to an elementary school, where we have our children and our families. Very, very scary, and it was so upsetting, actually. Very, very upsetting to me as a mama bear myself. It's super upsetting that we let that street be so neglected, where I can literally stick my entire platform sneaker in it, and like, I sink in it. That's sad. So even before traffic calming measures Ermhose there, which are absolutely necessary, and I agree with my council colleagues 100%. I would wanna up the ante and suggest that we actually put as a capital improvement project for this upcoming year, that we invest in actually repairing Madera Street, because it is so long overdue for the safety of our community. That's what I would like to say today. Hopefully I have some sort of support, and actually, you know what, agendizing Madera Street and directing staff to do the research on how much money it would cost to make that street whole. Do I have anybody support to do that, actually? Okay.
So I just wanted, she asked for support. My understanding is that she can look on page 89 of, on the website regarding when streets are being done and find out when Madera is scheduled. It's really easy to see when it's being scheduled and, following along that path because we've set in place a way to address the streets.
Councilmember
That's why
Snow,
I'm supporting your request.
No, I'm asking for a capital improvement project for next year because it's in such a dangerous state, so, no.
Thank you so very much. We do have a street paving plan in place already. But also, we have an annual street paving workshop where streets are prioritized. And so, as Councilmember Snow mentioned, he recommends that you take a look at the plan and see when streets are being paved. And then, be prepared. Be prepared for the next workshop when we bring community members in, along with staff and council members, to hear about which streets get paved, why and when. We have the annual workshop, each year. And, I highly encourage that you show up and that you're there. We will continue with this agenda item. I'm gonna go ahead and move on to Councilmember Bastille, followed by Mayor Pro Tem Mendoza. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to share, that actually back in the 90s, I used to live at Central in New Jersey, and I led an effort to an always stop at Central in New Jersey. So if you appreciate the always stop at Central in New Jersey, that's actually like, I've been there a long time. And I was reflecting on that when I saw that the report isn't recommending an always stop at Olive and Central. And I think the difference really is, because Central's a busy street, Olive's a busy street, and not that different than New Jersey, frankly. But I think the big difference is the stretch that people drive before they come to the intersection. I think that's a huge variable. And I think that the always stops are particularly important, where you have people going at pretty, relative speed. Relative speed is a big factor. And at all of the stretch, what I mean, the space between stop signs on Central is pretty small, so people don't build up that kind of speed. There was actually an accident at Central in New Jersey that prompted the always stop, and someday I'll tell you about it if you're ever curious. But I think that this is a very good proposal, and I think that it's a good discussion. I think that traffic calming measures are often a really good alternative to the always stop, and Madera is a prime candidate for traffic calming. I'm ready to support the recommendation, and I'll make a motion as soon as people are done sharing what they need to share.
And so can we consider that a motion already, or?
If you think it's in order to make a motion, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the resolution.
Thank you so very much. We do have a motion. I will move on to, Mayor Pro Tem Mendoza. I did hear someone say second. It is Councilmember LeBaron for the second, and we will continue with our comments.
I have no further comments.
Thank you so very much. And, I will, echo the sentiment that, yes, this is great, that we're installing an all-way stop, near school. And it's critical in ensuring the safety of our children and our families. The analysis, it definitely revealed the need, in making sure that, people and vehicles slow down. And what it does is it creates a safer environment for students walking to and from school. And, but also, it'll encourage drivers to be just a little bit more cautious, allowing pedestrians to cross with a greater peace of mind. So by taking these steps, and I consider, installing signs to be a simple step. We are prioritizing the safety and the well-being of our community's most valuable members, and that is those who walk to and from school. So we have that motion, and we have a second. I'll ask our city clerk to call the roll.
The motion was made by Councilmember Gastil with a second by Councilmember LeBaron to approve staff's recommendation. I will now conduct the roll to go on the record. Councilmember Gastil.
Aye.
Councilmember Snow.
Aye.
Councilmember LeBaron.
Councilmember LeBaron, aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Mendoza.
Aye.
Mayor Vasquez.
Aye.
Motion carries on a vote of 5-0.
Thank you so very much. Next, we have the council member meeting reports. This section of the meeting is dedicated